Hello and welcome to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to be taking you through the process and also my journey in terms of how I passed PMP in the first attempt. PMP, that is a Project Management Professional Certification. So I found it very necessary that I can share my experience to help others who might be aspiring to become PMP certified. So this is my experience, and I believe it's going to assist you in case you want to take your PMP exams. It's going to assist you in terms of how to strategize, in terms of the study process, in terms of study materials, and also the required mindset for you to be able to pass a PMP exam. So it's not like a shortcut to pass a PMP exam. Get me right on that. It's actually a way to get yourself certified in a very professional and self-paced approach. So in this video, I'm going to cover 6 main sections in terms of how to go through this PMP examination. So the first part is going to be on my experience. I'm going to take you from how I started all the way to how I managed to finish. But we are going to cover 6 areas. The first one is my journey. And then the second one is going to be also on the eligibility requirements and the application process. If you want to become a PMP certified, what makes you eligible to take the examination, and how do you prepare for the PMP examination, as well as your readiness. How do you check whether you are ready to take that examination? So that is going to be the second part. Then the third part is going to be on the study material. So you could be asking, Oscar, if I want to pass PMP, which materials should I start? So for you to start those materials, this is what we're going to cover in this particular section. I'm also going to share with you some of the materials in terms of the course which I used to pass, also in terms of the books that you might need to read, and also some of the YouTube videos which I can also recommend you to go through for you to prepare yourself to pass PMP. So we're going to cover that under the study material. Then the fourth item is going to be on the 30 principles or mindset that you should build for you to pass PMP. You just do not go to a PMP examination without this mindset. It's quite important that you build these mindsets and the principles for you to be able to, especially to eliminate quickly some of the questions that you might come across in an examination. Remember, you have 270 minutes to answer about 180 questions, and out of those 180 questions, within those 270 minutes, you have 10 minutes break. We're also going to cover that. Then the fifth one is we are going to go through about 40 practice questions, PMP practice questions, so that at least you familiarize yourself in terms of what to expect. You also familiarize yourself in terms of how to apply the mindset. Then the last one, we are going to look at the final steps and also, or the final tips, and also the next steps that you have to take for you to pass a PMP examination. So let's move on. So the other day, I was just thinking that as a certified Prince 2 project manager, and also with my more than 2 decades experience in project management, what else can I do to amplify my skills and my knowledge in project management? Then I said to myself, let me just challenge myself on this PMP exam. Although there are some who normally advise that you should have one of them, either Prince 2 or PMP. For me, I just said to myself, these 2 courses must be complementing each other. And I think that's exactly what I discovered. So I decided to go on a journey to sit for this PMP exam, or to get myself certified as a project management professional. The biggest challenge which I had was time. I was actually running or implementing a certain project, and you know how it goes with this project. It was a software project, so it was a big challenge to get enough time. But I said to myself, I still have to do it. So initially, I was planning to sit for this exam within 6 weeks of time. Then I said, that's my timeline, that's my deadline. Let me sit for this exam. Unfortunately, because of the other pressures from the work or from the project, I realized that my studying time was being disturbed. Each time I finish my daily work, I'll be very tired and very difficult for me to also try to study. Then I said the best way is probably to extend the time. So I decided that whatever the challenge I'm facing, I should be taking this exam within maximum 10 weeks. So that was my target, 2.5 months. You might say, that's too much. Yes, it depends. If you have enough time, you can even do it within 3 to 4 weeks. It's fine. But for me, because I was reserving around 2 to 3 hours per day to study PMP, also including the additional work that I have from my normal project. So it all depends. And I would advise you that you do what is suitable for you. You don't just do everything because it was done by Oscar or by someone else. So for me, my target was 10 weeks, which is 2.5 months. So I started studying on PMP. So the first things that I had to look for is there a specific course? Is there a specific book or material that I should prepare myself? And I can tell you, this is one of the biggest challenges you're going to face when you decide to go for PMP. The biggest challenge is there's too much material out there. Whether it's a video, whether it's a book, whether it's a journal, whether it's a lead magnet, there are so many materials to do with PMP that you're going to see, and that is going to overwhelm you. You might end up thinking that I can't make it. This is too much. But let me tell you, you still need to simplify the situation, like what I did. So there are basically, can I say, 4 items which I encourage you to always use if you want to pass your PMP. So the first one is obviously the PM book. PM book is very important. You cannot run away from it. At least read it once. I know it might confuse a lot of people, but to be honest with you, at least read it once. Now, the PM book has been segregated into other small books. One of them is the processes, which I also encourage you to read that book at least once. Read it at least once. And then we have the Agile book. Agile, read it at least once, that book. So we have now spoken about 3. There is another one which I used. I know there are some who might disagree with that approach. Let me know in the comment section. But the other book which I used is the PMP book Forms. This is the book I'm talking about. And you could be asking, Oscar, what is the purpose of these 3 books? So the PM book, obviously, it narrates what is happening with the PMI environment, what has been recommended for project management. Then the processes also and procedures book is also very important because it gives you all the processes. You get to understand all the actual 49 processes that you have to go through when you're taking your PMP exam. You take through your initiation, the processes. There are processes under initiation. There are also processes under planning. Under initiation, you have 2 processes. Then under planning, under initiation, you have 2 processes. Then under planning, you also have 24 processes, so that's 26. Then when it comes to executing a process group, you also have 10 processes, so that's about 37. Then when it comes to, that's about 36, sorry. So when it comes to monitoring and control, you also have 12 processes. So in this monitoring and control process group, you also have 12 processes, so that's 48. Then during the closing process group, you also have one process, which is closing project. So these process groups are very important for you to understand, and then the individual processes. If you want to understand more about these project management process groups, I've also created a comprehensive video, which you can also go through to understand what are these processes all about. I'll also leave a link in the description below. So process group is covered in that book. Process group is also covered in that book. Then we also have the Agile. Remember, the current structure of the PMI exam is, or PMP exam, is actually focused on both predictive and also Agile. So this book on Agile is also very, very important. You also need to go through it. If you want to understand more about Agile methodology, or how does it compare to predictive methodology, I've also created a comprehensive video that is going to help you to understand what exactly is Agile methodology. You can also watch it on my channel. I'll also leave a link in the description below. Then the fourth book which I'm talking about, you are going to reach a point where you want to understand what exactly is contained in some of these outputs from the processes that we're talking about when it comes to project management. Say, for example, you want to know what are you supposed to capture as part of the stakeholder register, as an example. What information are you supposed to capture? Of course, you will get it as you go through the PM book, but I'm telling you, this particular book is very specific and it describes more as in terms of what you're supposed to capture. Say, for example, you want to capture the name, of course, contact information, all that information, you'll get it from these forms. There are so many of them, these forms, I think about 64 or so, but they are quite important for you to understand. Most likely you're going to get questions like, where do you expect the responsibility to be captured, for example? You can talk of your work breakdown dictionary document, which is also part of the list that I'm talking about. So it's quite important that you go through these 4 books. I suggest you do that. I know others, they suggest 3 of them, but my preference or my advice is, if you can, you need to go through all these 3 books. Then, one of the requirements you're going to see as you prepare to start PMP is you have to have some training, project management training course that you have to take, which has to amount to almost 35 hours. We're going to cover that as we go through the video. So you still need that training, and that training also, it all depends on your qualification, whether you've got a master's or you've got an HND, higher national diploma, and so on and so forth. So that is going to be part of our next section. I can tell you, passing PMP is very exciting, and you feel like something has been taken off your shoulders. You are actually happy, and this is one of the achievements that you're not even ashamed of publishing, whether on LinkedIn or any social media platform. But through my journey, what I can tell you is, PMP, it's not a walk in the park, because there's a lot of effort that you have to put towards studying. Remember, I was talking about all these books, all these materials. So you have to make sure that you put a lot of effort to study them, number 1. Number 2, you also need to put a lot of effort to go through the course, okay? Because it takes you from the beginning all the way up to the end. So that consumes a lot of time. I have to be honest with you. So you also need some level of discipline when you're studying for PMP. That is one thing I was always trying to manage from my time. You need to be disciplined in terms of your time. You need to be disciplined in terms of your consistency, and also need to be disciplined in terms of your progress. So there's a lot of time required. There's a lot of discipline that is also required. Then, besides the books, besides the training course, you might also want to go through. Some YouTube videos. I found some few YouTube videos, which are very, very important, especially when it comes to explaining some of these concepts, assuming it was not very clear from your course. And I have to give credit to three trainers or YouTubers. One of them is Andrew Ramadai, is here. And then the second one is David McLachlan, is there. And then also the last one is also Mohammed, who is also there. These are quite good trainers. It's not a sponsored video, but I have to be honest with you, they also helped me to pass. So that is very, very important for you to go through those channels or those videos. They explain more in terms of what you're supposed to do for you to pass PMP. So, based on what I've said so far, we need to start by going through what are the requirements for you to be PMP. And then I'm also going to be sharing with you my weekly start guide or plan, my daily start guides and plan. And then let's see how it's going to help you to pass PMP. So let's move on. So in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through what you should tell yourself before studying, what I was telling myself before studying PMP. So what I would tell myself is you do not need to study or memorize the PMBOK, okay? This is very important. PMBOK is there for you to guide you in terms of the best practice that you should apply when it comes to implementing projects or when it comes to leading projects. So for your PMP study, you don't need to memorize it, but you need to understand exactly what is in the book, what does it mean, what does it refer to. So that is very important. So you need to start, okay? You need to start to choose the best practice or the best action that a project manager should take. And the second one is you also need to practice scenario questions, okay? This is what I used to do. I used to make sure that I go through a lot of these. I can tell you, I think it's more than 1,200. Some of them I was getting them through the courses. Some of them I was getting them through the project management process. So the other question that you have to go through is also to understand Agile. Okay, it's important to understand Agile. It is also important to understand what is a hybrid, and it is also important to understand what is predictive. So in a nutshell, predictive is when you are very sure of the scope in the beginning, and you also do all your planning in the beginning. But as compared to Agile, the scope is discovered as you go. So mostly is the time and the cost that is fixed. So you're pushing more on getting value or a value-driven approach as compared to predictive, where you have to wait up to the end and then you start seeing the results. Then hybrid, hybrid can be in two parts. I've seen so many project managers even making some of these mistakes. They think that when you say hybrid, it's only a combination of agile and predictive. In some cases, also there's a hybrid where you take even the lean approach and also you take the Scrum approach. So it could be predictive to agile or even agile to agile that you can also use in terms of hybrid. So you also need to understand that very well for your PMP exam. Then you also need to track areas or domains, okay, and mindset mistakes. So let me explain a bit on this. So when you are going through your PMP studies, there are certain domains that you have to make sure you understand. For example, stakeholder management is one of the domains, risk management, quality management. These are some of the domains, or integration. These are some of the domains that you have to master when it comes to PMP certification. So the mindset, I actually have a slide on the mindset, so we are going to cover that. Then the next item is also use fewer resources, okay? There are so many resources that are available, some of them online, some of them in printed form, and so on and so forth, some of them written videos or audio. I would suggest that you use fewer of them. Like I told you, I only used 4 of those books, And I also went through three channels for me to make it in the first attempt for PMP. So make sure that you are also using fewer resources. It's very important. Instead of using so many, that might end up confusing you. So these are some of the questions you should be asking yourself. So in a nutshell, do not start to memorize PMP, start to understand it so that you know the best action to choose as a project manager. Also, do a lot of practice in terms of scenarios. Practice scenarios, they are very important questions early. You don't have to wait until you have finished the PMBOK document. No, you need to start from the beginning. After finishing, say, for example, a specific chapter, try to get practice questions for those chapters. And also, you discover that as you go through these questions, you are picking areas where you're not strong, you're picking areas where you need some improvement. Also, go back and try to understand those specific areas. The mindset is also very important. Mindset is going to help you also to eliminate so many of these answers during your examination. So this is what we have covered in a nutshell. Let's move. So in this section of the slide, we are going to look at the eligibility, also the requirements, and also the readiness and preparedness that you should have for you to take PMP exam. So let's move on. So the first part of it is you need to understand on the project leadership within the eligible period. So what does that mean? It is expected that before you take your PMP exam, you must have been involved in a project in whatever capacity, and also it also depends on your qualification. Say, for example, you had your qualification in master's degree. It's expected that you must have at least 36 months experience. If you have got a diploma, which is on the lower side, you're expected to have at least 60 months of experience. So it's expected that you have some project leadership experience within the eligible period, which means if it's 36 months, which is 3 years, or 60 months, which is 5 years, you're expected to have had some project leadership in that capacity. Then one of the very important eligibility item is to have these 35 hours of training, project management training. So this is very important. You normally get, if you do it through the authorized training centers or institutions, you're going to get a certificate which is going to confirm that you have attended and you have completed the required 35 hours. So make sure that you are dealing with a genuine institution to give this to you, okay? So the next one is also on the educational pathway, okay? So like I said, if you have got masters, you are normally expected to have had 36 months experience. If you have got a higher national diploma document, you're expected to have 60 months experience. Then you start the application, okay? In the application, I can tell you it will take a bit of time, but it's quite important that you appreciate what you have to do. Of course, you have to put information like your name, your institution where you obtained your qualification, and your highest qualification that you also have. You still also have to put the experience that you also had. So you put it also on your application. When it comes to the application in terms of experience, make sure that you are actually touching more on project management experience, not any generic experience. So that is very, very important. In some cases, your application might be picked for audit. So make sure that you have all the evidence that you have put in your application. So that if your application is picked maybe for audit, you are able to provide your proof, especially your certifications or certificates, especially on the academic side. So if you don't have it, you have lost it. Make sure that you are finding time to get it. Otherwise, when it's required and you don't provide it, your application might not be approved. It normally takes 2 to 3 business working days for your PMI application to be approved. Then, if we move on to readiness questions, there are certain questions you have to ask yourself before you take your PMP exam. This is exactly what I did. So the first one is, Are you able to explain, okay, your key role clearly in your application, okay? Can you explain what is it that you were doing in that application? What is it were you doing in the project before you update the application? That is very, very important. It's enough evidence that you have done the project management activities. Okay, do my projects show leadership or even directing work? You should be able to show that also in your application. And one of the readiness question is, do I have proof of training hours? Remember, we said you need 35 hours here, okay? So do you have proof that you have done 35 hours? You can enroll into one of those project management courses that can award you those 35 hours of training. And are you able to commit 6 to 10 focused study weeks? Remember what I said, for me, I gave myself 8 weeks of focused studying. So I've heard other guys saying they've done it in 2 weeks, 3 days, 5 days. I don't understand that, because taking the 35-hour training course, it's not something that you can just quickly do in a day or two. Maybe probably 3 weeks minimum. That is if you're only focused on the PMP study. You're not doing anything else. But if you're having some other projects or some other side hustles that you're running, it's most unlikely that in a week or 2 days you'll be done with this. But others, they claim to have done that. May have done it in 6 weeks, in 8 weeks. That's what I can say. So you should be able to commit yourself between 6 and 10 focused study weeks. Then also in terms of scoring, when you're doing your practice, are you also scoring consistently in the good marks? In most cases, if you're getting 80% of your practice, then I think it's fair for you to start preparing for the examination. So it's quite important that you are very familiar with this eligibility. So the process is quite very simple. You decide that you want to go for PMP. You select a training institution for you to gain your 35 hours. And then you practice in terms of questions, how you're going to tackle the exam. Then you go through the application process. If you want to understand more about this eligibility application process, I've also created a full video on the eligibility and also the application process. So you go through the application, you wait for 2 to 3 days. Assuming your application was not picked for audit, you get a response that it was approved. So once it is approved, you now need to select the date when you want to have the examination. So when you want to have the examination, you have two options. The one, you can do it online, which means you can do it from your house or from your home, or you can use the Pearson view testing or even testing center. So for myself, I decided to use the testing center because it was more convenient for me to do that than at home, where probably someone could just come into my room or there could be some noise outside and so on and so forth. So once you have chosen your option, assuming you have decided to do it online, make sure that you don't get any disturbance. And remember, your mic is going to be on. It's called proctored online examination. So you should make sure that you don't make any violations in terms of examination. So that is very, very important to consider. So in the next slide, we are now looking at what tips I should give you in terms of application for PMP examination. So when you're applying for PMP examination, you're going to have a section for description. Make sure that you're using project description that shows that you were actually involved in that role, and also you mentioned the deliverables, the approach, and also the outcomes. This is all about project management. If you don't make sure that you're including this, it will be very difficult for someone to just use your application to confirm that you did the required experience. Then you should always avoid exaggeration. You know, like any other application, whether it's PMP or it's academic or anything else, or even application for a job, don't exaggerate someone. Don't put something that you know is not true, okay? Just mention what you have done, what you have completed, and also make sure you're putting something that you can provide the evidence. If you are not able to provide the evidence, it will be difficult, especially if your application is actually picked for audit. Then make your experience and demands non-overlapping. What do you mean by this? So your experience should not be overlapping. Say, for example, you were running a project from January to June, and now we are also running another project from April to May. Then obviously that period is overlapping. So one period can be only considered, and you might find you're short of the required hours. So always make sure that you don't have these overlapping ones. Then keep your training certificates and employment as evidence organized, just in case it's requested. You also have to make sure that you keep it organized and ready. Then only submit your application when it's complete. This is very important. Don't rush to submit your application. It will be rejected. Make sure the required information, it has been completed. The required information has been submitted in the application. So this is what you should always try to avoid these errors when it comes to application for PMP. And this is the same thing that I also used when I was applying for my PMP examination. The readiness checklists before booking any exam is as follows. The first thing that you have to do, where's my pen here, is before you book for any exam, you need to check whether you're able to explain why an answer is incorrect. You are not supposed to be guessing when it comes to PMP. You're supposed to be sure. So if you're not able to answer why a certain answer is incorrect, then it might mean that you might not be ready for the exam. Then the second item is you consistently finish the timed sets in the target space. What do we mean by this? So as you practice your PMP, just make sure that if you are taking an exam, say for 60 questions, you're expected to finish in 80 minutes. So make sure that in 8 minutes, 80, you're able to finish those 60 questions. If your practice is with 108 questions, then it means within 4 hours, you should be able to finish. If you're able to finish, then it means you are now ready for the exam. This is what I was doing actually. I used to practice a lot of questions, even if it's 30 minutes. Make sure you calculate your 1 hour, 1 minute, 15 seconds to finish your questions. Then also, you need to understand the servant leadership, which always calls for assess before you act logic. So what do we mean by servant leadership? It means you give the team the autonomy to choose how they want to deliver. Then you support them. We normally call it fetching the food and fetching the water for the team. So servant leadership is quite important, not dictatorship. So when you are preparing for PMP, just make sure that you understand what is servant leadership. Most probably, most of your questions will be coming with this mentality or in terms of how you're supposed to answer servant leadership. And then also assess before you act. This is very important. As a PM, even through my experience also, you shouldn't be able to, you should not just jump into action. Try to understand why something is happening. Say, for example, it's a conflict. You cannot just start by providing a solution without understanding what exactly is causing that solution, what is causing that conflict. It's normally called conflict management and root cause analysis. So it's very important to do that. Also, in terms of your readiness, you have to make sure that you can handle vague, word, and emotionally loaded scenarios. You might find that as we go through some of these questions, there are some questions which have a lot of information which you are supposed to understand. That is what is referred to here as being vague. You need to understand it. and also it will have so many scenarios, and then the question is going to be centered on a specific scenario. So you should be able to understand that. Then also, as you prepare for your exam, make sure that your weak areas, they're actually shrinking and they're not repeating. What do you mean by this? As you go through the start of PMP, as you start to practice some questions, you're going to find some weaknesses in some areas. It could be in a domain, it could be people management, it could be business environment, and so on and so forth. So the more you practice, the more you reduce these weaknesses, because you know which pockets and which areas to read. I used to do that. There are certain areas which I could see, for example, EVM, that the formulas were not sticking into my head as quickly as possible. So therefore, I had to force myself to repeat reading and reading and reading until I mastered it. So make sure that your weaknesses, they're actually shrinking, not repeating. And then should not be even increasing. Now, in this section, we are going to cover what I was using as my daily stud template. You can customize it based on your time and also your free time. However, the first 10 minutes, make sure that you revise yesterday's mistakes, okay? Your first 10 minutes, revise yesterday's mistakes. This is very important. Most of the time, as you start practicing on the questions, you're likely going to fail most of them. And like we said, you should be able to classify whether it's knowledge area or knowledge gap, or is it something to do mindset gap or reading mistake. So what you didn't get right yesterday, try to read it the following day and try to master exactly how did you get it wrong, and then you move on. Then 60 minutes, 45 to 60 minutes, make sure you learn one focus topic. So this is very important, especially when you move towards the end of your study. You want to focus on one topic. Today, I want to focus on planning process group. You go through it. Today, I want to focus on stakeholder management. You go through it. Today, I want to focus on integration of systems. You go through it. So you need to spend that. I use that. It was helpful. I think it can help you also. Then your 30 minutes, you must have timed questions for a specific topic. This is very important. Say, for example, you want only to answer questions on risk management or risk domain. So it means you focus on the risk questions, you time yourself, see if you're getting it right. So this is where the simulator is very important. Then your 15 minutes, always update your mistake log. This is very important. We spoke about this. How did you get it wrong? So this is very important for you. In this slide, I'm going to discuss with you the suggested week plan or rhythm that you should have, which I also used to pass PMP. So the first one is, like I told you, me, I did it in 8 weeks, okay? So the first week and the second week, I was understanding the foundations of PMP and also the domains, okay? Which is exam content outline, we are seeing here. These are exam content outline domains. And also you need to spend more time understanding Agile, understanding predictive, and also understanding what is hybrid. So these are long topics, I can tell you. But the moment you master them, the moment you understand what it means, it becomes very easy for the other sections to understand them. Whether you should apply Agile, you should apply hybrid, you should also apply predictive. Most likely you're going to get questions on Agile, questions on predictive, and also questions on hybrid. Then from week 3 to week 4, this is where you're now expected to be focusing more of your study on people, processes, and on a daily basis, try to go through about 20 to 40 questions. This works very well. I've done it, and I believe you can also do it. So just make sure that in your week 3 to week 4, you're actually focusing on people, processes, deep dive into processes. There's an extra book on processes that you should read at least once before you go for exam. And then on a daily basis, you have 20 to 40 questions that you should also focus on. Then on week 5 to week 6, what I was doing was actually to go through full practice sets. And most likely you're not going to get everything correct. You're also going to have some wrong answers as you practice. So the best that you can do when you're practicing is once you get something wrong, don't panic about it. Don't cry about it. What you have to do is actually to go back, refer to a specific section of PMBOK, which you were supposed to have used to answer that. In some cases, it might not be a specific section, but it might also be a mindset. So you go back, you analyze, you check what mindset were you supposed to use at that particular point. That is also very, very important to consider. Then on week 7, what I was actually doing, which I believe you can also do, is to start now focusing on the mock exams. You time yourself. Are you actually finishing on time? You also check for your stamina, okay? And then you also go for your mindset patterns. We're going to cover these mindsets later on in the video. So, so in terms of timing, it's very important. So your 60 questions, make sure it's 8 minutes. And then your 108 questions, make sure that's also 4 hours. Then on the stamina, it's also very important to consider on the stamina. I can tell you, it's not very easy to sit on a chair for 4 hours and still focused on the exam. So the best that you can do is to make sure that you are actually focused on your exam. And you need to practice that. For me, I think I've done about 6, if I'm not mistaken, I've done 6 practice or mock exams for exactly 4 hours. And just for me to build that stamina, I had to make sure that I take the 10-minute break. There are supposed to be 2 of them, 408 questions. So make sure that you are also getting these 180 questions. I've used Andrew Ramadan simulator, exam simulator. It has got so many questions. You can also use those ones. But it's quite important that you also build the stamina. Then when it comes to mindset is very important because this is what you are going to use during the exam to eliminate so many answers. So if you don't understand the exam mindset or PMP mindset, it will be very difficult for you to go through the exam and also passing it in the first attempt. So we're going to cover the mindset later on in the video. So you need to wait for that slide. Then on week 8, what I was actually doing was to do now the light versions, okay? And making sure that all my formulas, including EVMs, including calculation of floats, they're also they were also part of it. Make sure all your formulas, you know them. Then also take some rest. For me, I used to take a walk. I go to the gym, take a walk. And then you also look at your exam logistics. So I can tell you from experience, week 7 and week 8 is where you are going to be sure whether you're ready to take the exam or you're not ready to take exam. It's going to test you for a lot of things. So if you are finding that you're getting at least 80% in your mock exams or your practice, most likely you're going to make it in your first attempt to PMP exam. In this video, I'm going to share with you the study materials which I use and also what I recommend, okay? So the first one is you need to build something that is lean in terms of your stack of studying. So in terms of core materials, you need your 34-hour course. I can tell you, the moment you finish this course, you have covered close to in my own opinion, close to about 80% of this. So when you're here, you have covered almost 80% during the course. Then the rest of the weeks, you're just practicing and linking up some concepts which might not be clear to you. For example, your course is going to cover both predictive, hybrid, and agile, which is mostly what you should expect. Your course is also going to cover your processes, that you need, people management, the skills that you need, and also is going to cover the business environment. Then the other material that you have to look into is the examination content outline. You can also download this from PMI. So this is from PMI, okay? Oh, sorry, my handwriting is not that good. So this is from PMI. Then your companion also is going to be your PMBOK. So PMBOK, make sure you are going through the latest PMBOK that you have for that specific exam. And also, you are also going through the Agile Practice Guide, which is this particular book, and you need that to progress. Then you also need an exam prep or course summary that you should have. Like I'm telling you, me, I was also using the exam simulator. That was also very, very helpful because it has got so many questions. Remember I told you I went through so many questions, more than 600 to 1,000.2. So this will also help you. Then you need a simulator. This is what I was referring to. You need an exam simulator. Don't try to avoid this. Even if it means you're paying a small amount or you're paying a certain amount, you still need the simulator. The simulator gives you the environment of the exam. It can also help you to build the stamina because you're going to sit for the exam for 180 questions for 4 hours. You practice for 60 questions for 80 minutes. You practice. So make sure you also have that one. Then in terms of supporting documents, which is also very important, is you must have your personal notes or flashcards. Don't make the mistake I've seen some other guys doing and they ended up failing. They're just reading the examination study guides or study documents as if they're reading a notebook, as if they're reading a novel. So it's quite important that you don't take it that way. Always make sure you're jotting down some notes because these are the notes that you're going to read and go through as you prepare for exam. You don't need the complete book, but only your notes, they can remind you of a certain concept. Then mindset. Mindset is very important. We're going to cover that in the next slides. So just hang on that. Then process groups and the artifacts. There are 5 process groups in the PMP exam study. The initiate process group, then the planning process group, then the execution process group, monitoring and control process group, and also the closing process group. So make sure you also understand them very well, and the artifacts, which means the ITTOs, the inputs, the tools, the techniques, and the outputs. You also need to master for each and every process group. To master, not to memorize. Then you need to understand the Agile roles. There are basically 3 of them. You have your product owner, who is responsible for the features of the product, prioritizing the product backlog, creating the product backlog, and also even refining the product backlog. Then the other Agile role that you must also know is also on the Scrum Master. Some they want to call them Agile Project Manager, the one who's going to be responsible for supporting the team. Remember, in the Agile setup, the team is self-organizing, but removing impediments, removing blockers, that will be done by the Agile Project Manager or the Scrum Master. Then there are so many events that you have to also understand in the Agile. They are all contained in the Agile Practice Guide, which I was talking about here. So these events, for example, you have your daily meetings, which are supposed to take about 15 minutes or so. You have your sprint planning meetings. You also have your sprint review meetings. You also have your benefits or product log refinement process. You also have your retrospective meetings and so on and so forth. Then you should also understand all the artifacts that you should have. For example, your product backlog, your sprint backlog. You also need to make sure that all those items, you understand them very well. Now, this one is the cracker, I can tell you. As you go through the PMP study, you're going to be making mistakes, you're going to be creating wrong answers, and so on and so forth. So always make sure you create a mistake log. The advantage of having this mistake log is each time you want to make a reference or you want to read more on a certain topic or concept. You go to your mistake log, take the specific mistakes that you are making, and then you read about it, then you try another exam. So this is quite important that you keep this log. Most people, they don't keep them, and therefore it confuses them in terms of what they are supposed to read. So it's important that you always update this mistake log. It will help you to revise what you need. In this particular section, we are going to cover how to use the materials without getting lost. Like I said earlier, there are so many materials for PMP online and also in printed form. So you don't want to be confused. You want to make sure you're focused, and you want to make sure that you're able to also pass your exam. So the first one is you must make sure that your exam content outline, you have it. Start with it. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Exam content outline. You can download it from PMI website. It tells you what the exam is trying to assess, which is very, very important. You need to know what the exam is trying to assess. This is very important. You cannot just read and read when you're preparing for an exam. You need to know how the exam structure is going to look like. What are you going to be tested on? What are you going to be assessed on? And then you move on. Then do not read passively. Okay? What does that mean? Which means you have to convert each topic into what should a PM do. This is very important. Most of the questions you're going to get are mostly or probably on what should the PM do either first, what should the PM do either next, or what should the PM do in this situation. So as you read, you need to understand and you need to master what exactly is the PM supposed to do in such a scenario. Then after every question, okay, you need to classify it either as a knowledge gap to yourself, or it's a mindset gap, or it's a reading mistake. This is very important. So let's start with knowledge gap. When you go through a certain question, you might discover that you have answered it wrongly. What does it mean? It means probably you didn't understand the concept properly. You didn't understand even the processes. You didn't even understand some of the roles of the PM, like the integration part of it, or some domains, for example, stakeholder domain, risk domain, or even procurement, and so on and so forth. So when you go through these materials, always try to classify after every question. Was it a knowledge gap issue? How did I get it wrong? Was it a mindset issue? Was it a reading mistake? I can tell you most of the time it's a mindset and reading mistake. So always practice and make sure you get those ones right. Then you also need to review the questions, explanations more than scores. Having explanations for a certain question is very important. It helps you to also pick areas where you need to improve. It will also help you to see where to revise and where to focus more for you to get it right the next time. Then what you also need to do for you not to get lost is you need to stop adding resources. There are so many resources. Try to get those 4 resources that I was talking about. Your PMBOK, your latest edition for your exam. You also need your processes practice book, and also your Agile practice guide. And then the PMP forms document, you can also get that copy. So in this section, let us look at the mistake log. And this is one thing that changed everything for me. If ever you want to pass PMP, make sure you always create and update this mistake log. So let us go through the mistake log. What are we trying to achieve when we are going through this mistake log? I can tell you this thing is very important. It will change everything for you. You need to check where you are making mistakes. So the first is you need to question the theme. Okay. Are you looking at conflict management, or is it risk domain, or is it something to do with change management, or it has something to do with agile team, or is it procurement? So question theme is very important. So when you make mistakes, when you don't answer some of these questions properly, you need to go back to your mistake log and try to see whether the theme was to do with conflict management, or it was to do with risk, probably even quality, or even stakeholder management. It could be even about integration, about change, about procurement. So this is also very important, probably to do with agile team or even predictive management. So you need to make sure that in your mistake log, you are able to classify the theme of the question into specific categories that you might have. Then you also need to understand why I chose the wrong answer. This is very important. When you practice your PMP, you need to understand why you're making mistakes. You need to understand why a wrong answer was chosen by you. You need to understand what mistakes were you actually making, which theme were you supposed to use, which domain were you supposed to use. If it's a process group, which process group were you supposed to use? If it's a process, which process were you supposed to use? If it's an ITTOs, which inputs or which tools, which techniques, which outputs were you supposed to use? So you also need to understand why you choose the wrong answer. Okay. Then also, what is the correct PMP mindset? This is very important. Okay. You need to understand what was the mindset. Almost close to 8% of your questions are going to get in PMP. It's all about you being able to link it to a specific mindset for you to be able to answer that question. Like I said earlier, we are going to cover the mindset principles or points in the coming slides. So when you get any specific question, you get it wrong, record it in your mistake log. After recording it in your mistake log, try to understand which mindset, which PMP mindset were you supposed to apply for you to get that question correct. So the more you practice on that, the more you start getting the answers correct. Then also look at what trigger words did you miss. You're going to see as we go through some practice questions in terms of trigger words. For example, it could, the question might be, what is the project manager supposed to do next? What is the project manager supposed to do first? So the trigger words could be something to do with, say for example, assess, reevaluate, meet with the team, and so on and so forth. So you must make sure that you understand the trigger words that you missed in that question. Then you need the rule to remember next time. Okay? What is it that you are going to use to remember next time you get a similar question that you got wrong? So it's very important that you also understand this. So in a nutshell, a mistake log is one of the very important documents you should have. Okay? Remember, you create this, you customize it based on how you are practicing your questions. But it's a very important document that you should have when you are studying for PMP. And I can tell you, once you get your mistake log updated, you revisit, you correct the mistakes, you're most likely going to pass your PMP exam on the first attempt. So now, in this section, we want to cover the PMP exam principles and mindset that you should always have, which I've also used for my PMP exam, and that is how I got to pass it in the first attempt. So let us go through these principles. There are going to be 30 of them that we are going to cover in this video. So the first one, the first principle that we have to think about, that we have to study here, is to always think like a servant leader. Don't, like what I've seen in practice with other project managers, they are normally dictators, okay? They want to dictate what has to be done in the project. I can tell you, you make your life very easy, especially when you become a servant leader in a project environment. Don't be a dictator. So what do we mean by this mindset? It means you spend more time supporting and helping the team to deliver or to complete the tasks assigned to them in a project environment. It could be an agile project, or it could be predictive. So you should always be fetching water and also getting food for the team. You should always be removing any impediments that might come to the team. That's what we're calling servant leadership. You should always be even shielding the team from any distractions so that the team can focus on the project tasks that are available. You're going to find, you're going to come across so many distractions when you're executing a project. You might find that the functional manager might request one of the very important and skilled resource in your project. So you still need to shield that in a project environment if you are becoming, or if you are working as a servant leader. Then one of the mindsets you're going to see is going to help you so much when you're going through your PMP exams is assess before taking any action. And this is not just going to help you in terms of project management, but also in real life, you're going to find that this mindset and principle is very, very important. There are going to be so many issues coming to you as a leader in a project, whether it's predictive or agile. And the best that you can do in such scenarios is to try to understand the issue, is to go for the root cause analysis of the issue before you take any action. Say, for example, you are getting an update from one of your team members that a specific vendor is no longer able to deliver a specific component as planned. You don't just rush to say fire the vendor, look for another vendor. You need to try to understand first, what is the cause of this delay? Why is it the vendor cannot deliver? That is very, very important. So once you understand that, you are able to come up with a better solution to resolve the issue. So assessing a situation, assessing a scenario, assessing the environment, assessing whatever is coming to you as a project manager before you take action is one of the very important mindsets that is going to help you. And I can tell you, even in your exam, it's going to also help you to eliminate so many wrong answers. And in most cases, you're going to be left with two, which you have to choose, which means you have to go back to the question, try to understand, and then you choose the right one. But probably 2 or 3 of those answers you can eliminate using this particular mindset. You're going to see it when we go through some examples of these practice questions. Number 3, you should always collaborate before escalating. This is very important. As a project manager, you work with your team, you work with your vendor, you work with all your stakeholders before you actually think of escalating. What I'm saying here is, us as project managers, we should put some effort to try to resolve the issue before escalating either to HR, to sponsor, to project board, to steering committee, or to whoever. So escalation should be the last resort. Try to collaborate with the stakeholders, try to collaborate with your team, try to understand the causes of the problem. Remember our mindset, number 1, think like a servant leader. Now mindset number 2, assess before taking action. So instead of just pushing to escalate an issue, try by all means to collaborate with the team, brainstorm, try to understand what solutions can be applied, what alternatives can be applied before you escalate. Number 4, solve problems at lowest and appropriate levels. Okay, so this is also linked to the previous mindset, which is also collaborating. So where it's applicable, work with the team to solve the problem. Don't try to go higher at senior management, go to sponsor, go to board, project board, steering committee, and report. Try by all means to resolve the issue at that level. Okay? Number 5, protect transparency and trust. So this is a very important mindset, and you are going to find that it will save you a lot when it comes to answering some of these questions during your PMP exam. I've used it before. A project manager is expected to be ethical, no matter the situation. You're supposed to tell the truth. You're supposed to give a proper judgment. Don't lie to anyone. Don't misinform anyone. Always be transparent. If there's a challenge, let all the stakeholders, whoever is interested, to understand the challenge, and if there's a solution that you're planning to implement, always make sure that there's an understanding that there's a challenge and the solution is underway. Don't try to, I've seen it with some other project managers in the field also. They try to hide some of this information. And then at the end of the day, the information is finally exposed. You see, once people, they lose trust on you, if it's not impossible, it will be very difficult for them to trust you again. So always be transparent and always create an environment where people can trust each other. Number 6, remove impediments. So this is quite important, okay? When you're working with your team, especially if you're working in an agile environment, during the daily stand-up meetings, make sure that you're always removing the impediments. Impediments are not good for the project. They will always slow down delivery of project deliverables. They always even frustrate team members. People will become disengaged. So you want everyone to be engaged. So always try by all means to remove impediments for the team. Let the team focus more on the project as you remove these impediments. Number 7, coach before commanding. This is very important. Most project managers, they want to command, okay? You are supposed to coach. You are supposed to coach before you command, okay? So always try to make sure that you are getting the buy-in of your team before you do anything. And I can tell you, this mindset is very helpful when it comes to answering some of the questions. You're going to see, or as you practice, you're going to come across some questions where you have to command. But if you know this particular mindset, definitely you're not going to command. You're only going to coach the team. Number 8, engage stakeholders early and often. This is a very good mindset in a project environment, not just for PMP. Stakeholder engagement should be throughout the project. Don't make a mistake I've seen with other project managers. They do stakeholder engagement only early in the project. Then the rest, there's no longer stakeholder engagement. Stakeholder engagement or stakeholders, they change throughout the project. Okay. If you want to understand more about stakeholder management, I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can also access a full video which I've created on stakeholder management. So stakeholders, they change throughout the project. Some they are coming in, some they are going out. So their analysis and engagement should also be often and also continuous throughout the project. That mindset is very important. Then number 9, use data and not assumptions. So as you execute the project, okay, there's going to be performance data that you're going to collect throughout the project. And if you want to understand more about project data management, I've also a link in the description below where I've created a full video on data management in a project environment. You can also access it and watch it on my channel also. So use of performance data during project management is very important. Always use data instead of assumptions. Some, they want to call it data. I believe it's the same thing. So when you're using data, not assumptions, you're using something close to facts or something that is factual. For example, you are assuming that a certain phase was going to take 2 months and it has taken 5 months. So you now have enough data to say this particular phase, it takes 5 months. And it can also help you to update the lessons learned, which can be either applied in the next phase or next project, or even to the organization as a whole. Number 10, choose prevention as compared to correction. This is very important. In a project environment, if you can avoid something, it's cheaper and easier than to try to correct it. Let me give you an example. If it's something to do with quality, the cost of prevention for quality is cheaper than the cost of correction in most cases, because in some products, you have to dismantle everything or you have to start again. So this mindset is also very important when it comes to PMP exam. You should always choose something that is going to prevent than allowing something to go on and then you try to correct it. You're going to see some of these examples as we go through the practice questions. For example, ignoring a specific item and then trying to correct it later might be more expensive than trying to resolve it at that particular stage of the project. So let's continue with the mindsets. Mindset number 11, follow a change control in a predictive environment. This is very important. Changes, they will always come, no matter what. I'm yet to come across a project. I've done more than 20 projects so far. I'm yet to come across a project that is not going to involve any changes, whether it's agile project management or it's predictive. So in a predictive project environment, when your plan or project management plan has been signed off, it will be very difficult for you to just change things without going through approval process to change. So if there's anything to be changed, it has to follow a proper change management process in a project environment. So this mindset is very important. When it comes to answering some of these questions in PMP exam, you're going to get scenarios where if you are going to follow the proper change control process, you won't find any challenges. And normally is the answer. Number 12, let agile teams be self-organizing. Very important mindset here. Predictive, you're having the PM deciding, selecting solutions, procurements, and everything else. However, in an agile environment, you want the team to deliver. Yours is to support them. You're a servant leader. You support them. You remove impediments and allow the team to self-organize in terms of how they want the work to be done, what solutions they can choose for specific scenarios. So that is also a very important mindset. Then prioritize value delivery. Projects, in most cases, they're supposed to deliver value, okay? So you need to prioritize the values. Don't just do a project. If a project is not giving any value to the organization, then why are you going for that project? So that mindset is also very important. If something is not giving value to the project, something is not giving value to the organization, then it's not expected that you should continue with that project. It must be stopped, actually. Unless if it's something that is regulatory, unless if something that has got, it's a law or for safety, then probably. But still, if it's for safety, that's the value. Number 14, you need to tailor your approach to the context of the project, okay? Most people, they make mistakes here. A project must be tailored according to the context or the environment. A good example is you can even tailor in terms of different domains. For example, you can tailor in terms of the stakeholders. A stakeholder that you had in a construction project might be different from a software project, might be different from a medical project, might be different from a research and development project. It might be even different from a financial project. So you need to tailor the approach. Say, for example, you want to use Agile. You need to tailor Agile to a specific project environment. In some cases, you want hybrid. You don't need to take everything that you have seen in PMBOK. So this mindset also is very helpful when it comes to answering some of the PMP questions. Number 15, update plans and artifacts when information changes. This is very important, especially in predictive environments. Most of the plans, the strategies, the documentation is actually done upfront. But you find that things can change. I've also seen some cases where even a project charter is actually changed because the objective of the project has changed. And even some of the products have changed, okay? So as you get more information, as information changes, always make sure that you're updating the plans. And this is quite important, especially when you take the concept of progressive elaboration. The more you get into the project, the more some of this information become very clear. So that is why you find most of the processes, you have the inputs, tools and techniques, and then outputs. You find on the output side of it, most of the processes, you're actually updating specific records. And remember, where you're supposed to get a change approval, to change a specific plan, say for example, scope management plan or procurement management plan, always make sure that you get that approval. So artifacts and plans should always be updated throughout the project as more and more information becomes very clear. Number 16, you need to manage risks proactively. Managing risk is very important. It is actually the responsibility of the project manager or Agile project manager or even Scrum Master. You need to manage a risk. Risk is just uncertainty in the project, something that can happen in the future, and it can affect the project positively, or it can even affect it negatively. I'll also leave a link in the description where you can access a full video on how to manage risks in a project environment. So you need to do it proactively. How do you do it proactively? Don't make a mistake. I've seen some project managers, they only review risks when they want to produce a report for senior management or for the project steering committee or project board. No, don't do that. You have some frequency, some rhythm of making sure that you're doing a risk review after a certain period. It could be weekly, it could be after every sprint, it could be after every week if it's a predictive environment, or it could be after every release. It all depends, but make sure that proactively you are looking at the risks, what can go wrong that can affect the delivery of the project products or deliverables. So this has to be proactive. This is very, very important. It's going to help you when it comes to PMP exams also. You're going to get so many answers, but one of them might be very clear in terms of proactive management of risks. Then also communicate based on stakeholder needs. Stakeholders, they have different communication needs. Don't try to have one size fits all. I can tell you a finance stakeholder and an ICT stakeholder, they might have different needs in terms of communication. They might want reports with specific information over a specific period or with a certain frequency. So always make sure that the communication is based on the stakeholder needs. When you do your stakeholder analysis, one of the items you also need to capture is the communication needs. You find there are certain stakeholders, email is enough for them as a form of communication. There are others where they need face-to-face. There are others, they just need an update report. Others, verbal is also very important. So that's a very important principle and mindset. It will help you to eliminate some of the questions in the PMP exam. Number 18, understand the root cause before you act. Okay, remember our mindset number 2, assess before you act. This one you also need to understand. The advantage of understanding the root cause is you end up resolving the problem than resolving the symptoms. If you don't understand the problem, in most cases, you end up resolving the symptoms. So you are going to get so many of these questions in PMP exam where you have to identify the root cause as an answer. In most cases, you'll get it right. Number 19, never ignore compliance or ethics. This is very important. Compliance can even lead to very serious consequences, either for the organization or even for the project. So always make sure that you understand the implication of either new laws, new regulations throughout the project. If you're not sure, you can even consult with your legal department or compliance department, and always do the right things. That is ethics. Never lie about anything. Don't do anything wrong. Don't try to shortcut the law. Don't try to circumvent anything. That's ethics. So this mindset also you're going to see as we go through the practice questions. It's going to help you to resolve or also to pick the right answer for that question. Number 20, respect the project charter and objectives. Okay, project charter, it will give you a high level understanding of the project, high level. But as you go deeper into the project, you begin to pick and understand more details about the project and objectives. If you want to understand more about project charter, I've also done a full video, the link in the description. You can also go through the video. It explains more about project charter. It's a long video, but I believe it's also very helpful. So the reason why you should respect it is throughout the project, you should be able to check the project deliverables, project progress, the objectives. Is this still viable? Say, for example, you wanted to be a pioneer in producing a certain product, and now there's a new competitor who is already in the market. You also need to do that assessment. Your objectives, is it still going to be pioneer or is going to be competitive? How are you going to make yourself to be better than the competitor in the market? So always make sure you respect the project charter and the objectives of the project. So let's proceed. Let's proceed. Number 21. Use retrospective lessons learned continuously. The purpose of retrospective, which is normally done after every iteration, is to pick any lessons that you can apply either to the project or even to the next iterations or release that is going to come. So always make sure that you use them so that you can improve continuously. Number 22, facilitate consensus where it's possible. This is very important. In project management, consensus is a very important situation to have. Let the team agree on what has to be done. That gives some form of ownership. It gives some form of responsibility. So when you're answering the PMP exam questions, where you see facilitation of consensus is most likely going to be the answer. But you need to understand the question first. Otherwise, they might use that word, facilitate, where it's not applicable. Number 23, do not jump into firing, replacing, or blaming anyone. Okay, this is very important. As a project manager, firing is the worst thing that you can do. Blaming someone without understanding what is the issue is something that you can do. You should always be working with the team. Work with the team to get things right. Work with the team to brainstorm. Work with the team to get solution. So in a PMP exam, you're likely going to get a question with answers like replace the team member or even replace the vendor. It's unlikely going to be the answer. So you also need to make that judgment in an exam. Then number 24, always train and coach where you have performance gaps. So there's a process of develop your team in the execution process group. So how do you develop your team? You first need to do an assessment of the skills that we have within the team, and where you have some gaps, always try to make sure that you actually bridge those gaps. If the skills are not available, make sure your team is trained. The best that you can do as a project manager is to train your team. Number 25, protect the team from unnecessary disruption. You're going to see that your team is going to be tempted to be distracted from their current focus by a lot of things. And in most cases, it will come from functional managers because those are their bosses. They might request them to do one or two things. Or in most cases, they might be distracted by conflicts. So you should always make sure that you are also managing conflicts in the project environment. This is very important for answering your question. If there's something that is going to disrupt your team, make sure that it's unlikely going to be the answer. Number 26, Agile involves product owner for prioritization. Don't ever make a mistake to try to prioritize features or issues in an Agile environment. This has to be the responsibility of the product owner. You might find some cases where the product owner might be resistant. Maybe they're coming from a predictive environment. Your responsibility as an Agile advocate, as a project manager, is to make sure that you educate them or you even train them on the benefits of prioritizing these issues. So in your exam, you might find some of these answers coming in. And if it's something that is going to help or that is going to define that the product owner is the one to prioritize, most likely it's going to be the answer. In predictive, you use the CCB for baseline changes. CCB is a change control board. So in a predictive environment, we have the change control process is actually a complete process. And if there's anything else that has to be changed, it has to go through the CCB, which is what is being referred to. So your mindset should make sure that if there is a predictive environment, CCB changes should also be considered, or approvals. Number 28, keep the benefits and business value visible. So each and every opportunity you get to sensitize people about the benefits and the value of the project, make sure that that is also explained and is very clear. So this mindset is very important. Business benefits and also the key benefits that we have. Remember, the key benefits, you get them from the benefits analysis, the benefits realization plan that you're going to create, that is going to be created before the project, and which you're going to reference in a project charter. Number 29, you need to balance people, process, and also business outcomes. So this is a very important mindset, especially when it comes to choosing your PMP answer. You need to balance between people, process, and also business outcomes. If there's something that is going to come to you either as an issue or as a challenge, you have to look at it, whether is it people issue, is it process issue, and how does it affect the business outcome. If it's something that is going to be having an impact, then it means you have to focus more. If it's something that is a conflict but is going to affect even the business outcome, then you also need to manage that. Then we have number 30. Pick an answer, okay, which is calm, ethical, and will do first. Okay, so pick the answer a calm, ethical PM would do first. So you're going to get some questions which are going to assess you in terms of what should the PM do first. Okay, so for you to get the right answer, you need to look for something that shows some ethics from the PM side. So this mindset is also very important. Ethical PM would do first. So as we go through these mindsets, you're going to understand and appreciate what exactly do we mean by this. We're going to go to do some practice questions on these 30 mindsets or principles. And for each and every principle, we are going to go through one practice question so that you can see the application of that. So in this section of the video, we are going to cover the mindset traps to avoid. Remember, there are certain mindsets or principles that you should have when you go for PMP exams. But also you should avoid some traps if you want to pass your PMP exam in the first attempt. So let us go through some of these traps to avoid so that we understand what are normally the usual weak answers and what are normally the usual strong answers. So the first one we are looking at is escalate to sponsor immediately. So in a project environment, as a project manager, or us as project managers, we are employed to run the project. We're employed to execute the project. You only need to go to higher authority like sponsor or project boards or project steering committee when something is above your limit or you need approval. Otherwise, for day-to-day project issues, you're not expected to be going to the sponsor or senior management. So you should be managing the project. So in your PMP exam, you're likely going to see answers like immediately escalate to the sponsor. It's unlikely going to be the answer in most cases. These are usually classified as weak answers. As a project manager, you don't escalate. Understand the issue. Involve the team to resolve the issue. Remember the mindset on involving the team. Involve the team to brainstorm. Involve the team to look for solutions. Involve the team also to implement some of the solutions. So you don't just rush into escalating. If you come across some of the very strict sponsors, the moment you start escalating more into them, they're going to ask you a question which is going to be very, very challenging. They're going to ask you, what are you employed to do? So normally weak answers like immediately escalate to sponsor are likely going to be the answers. Then another weak answer you're likely going to come across is replace, punish, a team member first. Projects, it's all about people. From my experience, I can tell you, it's supposed to be called people management, not project management, from my own view. You are always working with people. And in most cases, your most skilled people, they're the ones to make mistakes because they are working. Those who are not working, they always avoid mistakes. So if you go into this habit of firing or replacing people, team members in a project, it's going to be a very big challenge, honestly. So you should always make sure that you don't just replace people. Try to understand if someone is very slow in completing their deliverables, try to understand the root cause. Why are they very slow? If there's a conflict, people are not working along together, also try to understand. Don't rush into punishing or even replacing people. So it's very important that you pick this as a weak answer in your PMP exam. That is what I also used for me to pass it in the first attempt. Another weak answer we are going to get is approve change without analysis. Remember the mindset, assess before you take any action. So changes are going to come. There's no way you're going to run a project without changes. Changes will always come. It depends on how you're going to handle the changes. But the best that you can do after receiving any change is to assess or analyze the impact. Don't do the mistake I've seen with other project managers. When they are being asked to analyze the impact, they just look at triple constraints. Triple constraints, you're looking at costs, time, and scope. I can tell you, you have to go beyond that. For example, you also look at the risk. There are some changes when you apply them in a project environment, they might end up creating another risk, which you also need to capture in your risk register. If you want to understand more about risk register, I have a link in the description where you can access a full video in terms of how to manage a risk register. It's a long video, but I think the information inside it is worth it in terms of reading. So when it comes to approval of changes, always make sure the analysis is done. What is the impact on costs? What is the impact on scope, on timelines, on risk, even on quality, even on procurement, on stakeholders? So these changes must be analyzed first. So normally in your PMP exam, these are weak answers you always find them. You are rushing to approve something without analysis. And unlikely that is not going to be an answer. Then ignore stakeholder concerns. This is very important. These are normally weak answers also. When a stakeholder is raising an issue, if it's applicable, to meet with the stakeholder face-to-face is very important. Where it's not applicable, you can even use the virtual communication. At least try to understand what the stakeholder's concern is all about. Don't ignore. For example, I met a stakeholder who was complaining that the report that we're giving them, it was too detailed, okay? Which means the information which they were getting was not making sense to them. They only wanted to focus on what they. So the best way I resolved that was to meet with the stakeholder, revisit their communication needs, and then from that point onwards, they started understanding. So you don't ignore the stakeholders. Always make sure that you meet with them, understand their concerns, do an assessment, impact assessment. Sometimes you might also want to discuss with the team in terms of what the stakeholder is also requesting. So ignoring a stakeholder concern is normally a weak answer when it comes to a PMP exam. You might find a situation where the first answer is continue with the project and then address the stakeholder after the project, or continue with the iteration and then address the stakeholder issue after a release. In most cases, those are not likely going to be answers. So you need to be very careful. Skip communication and documentation. You see, these are some of the best practice you should always have in a project environment. Okay? You have done your analysis of your stakeholders. You have done analysis of stakeholder needs in terms of communication. Then during your execution, make sure you're communicating. During your monitoring and control phase or process group, just make sure that that communication is actually being done. So don't skip that communication. This is where you might end up creating stakeholders who are not engaged in terms of what is expected in the project, because you're not communicating with them. You're skipping their communication. If they said weekly, if they said fortnightly, or after 1 year or even 6 months, make sure that communication is actually being done. So it's very important in your exam, PMP exam, when you see such answers as skip communication, don't do documentation, or do documentation later, that is unlikely going to be an answer. So this might not be a very exhaustive list of all the weak answers, but you'll find that for your exam, most of them, they fall into these 5 items. Most of them, they fall into this. So if you are able to eliminate some of these answers using these examples, then you'll find that you have enough time to go to the correct answer and to finish the exam. Now, let us look at what are normally considered to be strong answers during your PMP exam. All right? Investigate a root cause. Super. Okay? This is the correct mindset. Each time there's a challenge in a project, it could be conflict, it could be stakeholder disengagement, it could be a vendor dissatisfaction. The best that you can do for the project is to understand what is causing that. What is the root cause? It's going to help you to apply a solution that is going to resolve the problem, instead of applying a solution that is going to resolve the symptoms. So it is quite important that each time there's an issue, projects will always have issues, either from the beginning of the project, in the middle of the project, or even towards the end of the project. They will always have issues and challenges. But as a project manager, the best that you can do, or even if you're a project lead, is to understand the root cause of that problem. The moment you understand the root cause, even brainstorming with the team in terms of solution, or even selecting the best solution for that issue becomes very easy. So in your PMP exam, if you find something that is pointing towards a root cause analysis, root cause investigation, understanding root cause, assessing root cause, it's likely going to be the answer. Then number 2, in terms of strong answers, meet, collaborate, or even facilitate. Okay. So these are very important terms when you are taking your PMP exams. Okay. You might find certain questions indicating that you have to meet. For example, if there's a concern from say it's a new stakeholder into the project. If there's a concern from the new stakeholder in the project, most likely the best is to meet with them. Revisit your stakeholder register. Okay, meet with them. Make sure the register is containing the information they need. Even if it means you are going to the stakeholder assessment matrix, revisit also. But the best is to meet with the stakeholder, understand their concern. You might be even forced to explain the objectives of the project, or the vision of the project, and the mission of the project. So meeting with them will help you to get more information, to understand more of their concern, and also to help you to come up with better solutions. So most likely when you find a solution or an answer in a PMP exam, which is going to say meet with the stakeholder, meet with the concerned team member, meet with the vendor, maybe it could be meet with the ICT manager, meet with the senior manager, board member. So most likely that is going to be the answer. The advantage of meeting is you get more information before you start thinking of an answer. Remember the investigate the root cause issue. Also remember the assess before taking any action mindset. Then collaboration is also very important. In most cases, even from my experience, some of the project issues are resolved through collaboration, which means you are putting people into one meeting, whether virtual or physical, but at least they have an opportunity to suggest solutions. They have opportunity to air their views, they have opportunities to propose the way forward. So collaboration is mostly the best. Don't try to be a dictator where you give the team a solution. Work with them, meet with them, choose a solution, and then move forward. So in your PMP exam, you find something most likely with collaborate, it's likely going to be an answer. But be careful. In some cases, the wording of collaborate is used, but it does not answer the question. Or the first part of it might make sense, but the second part might not make sense. So always read and understand the PMP exam question before you apply some of these mindsets, before you apply some of these strong and weak answers that are expected in a PMP exam. The next one, you need to review your plan, your charter, and agreements. So this is crucial, okay? Charter, plan, and agreement. So let me start with charter. So in charter, a project charter is the one that is going to have a high level objective of the project, dependencies of the project, risks, high level risks of the project, identified stakeholder list of the project. And it's also linked to the three main documents that are two main documents, not three, two main documents that are created before the project charter. That is your business case and your benefits realization plan. Okay. So charter is the document that was used to authorize the start of the project, either by the sponsor or by senior management of the organization. So if it was an authorization document, whenever there's something that is an issue in a project, say for example, the scope is expanding, you have to revisit the charter because there's a section to specify the scope of the project. So always make sure you're having reference to the charter. Any other document that comes, it was building on the high level details in the charter. The rest were detailed. You go deeper, but they were basing everything else from the charter. So if ever there's an issue in a project, always refer to the charter in terms of objectives, stakeholders, in terms of vision, in terms of mission of the project. So review the charter. In most cases, is likely going to be the answer, but you have to understand the question. Then plan. Plan is very important. Remember, in the planning process group, we have actually 24 processes. And in some of these 24 processes, you're creating a plan for scope. You're also creating a plan for risk management. You're also creating a plan for procurement management, for quality management. You're also creating plan for stakeholder engagement. Okay? So if ever there's going to be in a predictive environment, if ever there's going to be any issue, you are most likely going to refer to those plans. Okay? Remember, we have a project management plan, which has got sub-plans inside. So when you refer to the plan, you might refer to one of those sub-plans. Okay? To understand. Say, for example, there is so much in terms of scope changes in your project environment. You're likely going to go back to your plan. You look at the sub-plan for change management. What did you agree? What did you document as the way or the best way to manage changes throughout the project? Okay. So that is also going to be part of your reference. And in a PMP exam, most likely that is going to be the answer. Review the plan. Okay. Then when it comes to agreements, yes, agreements also are very important. I can give you a good example. I had a situation in one of the projects where the vendor was pushing to get payment as quickly as possible. So after revisiting the agreement, sometimes it's called agreement or it's called a contract. So after revisiting the contract, I had to explain to the vendor that there is no provision to demand payment at any given moment. It was milestone based. So as soon as the milestone is completed, as soon as the end users, they have signed off the milestone, then you get paid. So this is an example where you have to refer to agreements or contracts. If you want to understand more about agreements and contracts, I've also created a full video. I'm going to leave a link in the description. You can also watch it from my channel. So in a PMP exam, if there's an answer that is going to refer to review of agreements, it's most likely going to be the answer, but you still have to understand the question. Then the second from last is assess impact before deciding. This is very important. You need to understand the implication of doing any action in a project environment. Say, for example, the implication of replacing someone. Remember, you're not supposed to replace, but there are certain cases, if someone is doing something illegal, definitely you have no option. If someone is breaking the law, definitely you have no option. But before you make that decision, you have to make sure that you have done the proper analysis, you have done the proper assessment of the situation. That is very, very important. Then the last one, but not least, is updating artifacts, okay, and to communicate. So projects, they might run for long periods. I've been involved in projects where we had to go for 3-5 years and so on and so forth. And you find in some construction projects, they even take even longer. So things can change, information can come in, and there might be a need to update some of these project artifacts. So how do you do that? You need to make sure that continuously, each time you get any information, what is normally called progressive elaboration, when something becomes very clear as you go deeper into the project, you need to update all the artifacts. It could be updating even some plans, okay, stakeholder lists, risk register, and so on and so forth. For predictive environments, there are certain artifacts you must get approval from the Change Control Board, CCB, before you change them. And there are other documents like registers, issue register, issue log, risk register. In most cases, you don't need approval to change them. So always make sure that the artifacts are always being updated and they're also being communicated. So if something has been updated, has been changed, make sure people they are aware of what has been changed. So these are the 10 mindset tips. So these are the 10 mindset traps that you should always avoid when it comes to PMP mindset. You're going to find a lot of videos, a lot of can I say, YouTubers who are going to talk about mindset. Some of them, of course, they resolve the weak answers. Some of them, of course, they resolve on the strong answers. But don't fall into these specific traps. So in this section of the video, we are going to go through how to read some of these scenario questions in a project, in a PMP exam scenario. So let us start with the first one. We're going to go through 5 ways to read these scenario questions. Number 1, you need to identify the project approach. Is it predictive, agile, or hybrid? Okay. So in your PMP exam, you're likely going to have some questions which are assessing your knowledge in terms of knowing which project approach is this. For example, you are going to see a question which talks about Change Control Board, CCB. So that definitely means it's a predictive project approach. You're likely going to see a question on iteration. After the first iteration, blah, blah, blah. So you find that you should be able to pick that once you start talking about iteration, backlog, you're talking of Agile. Then you might also find scenarios where there are 2 teams, one on Agile, the other one is on predictive, but working on the same project. So you should be able to pick that this is actually a hybrid scenario. Or maybe you might find a situation where the organization is moving from predictive to Agile. And as a project manager, you are supposed to advise what is the best approach to follow. In most cases, you find when people are moving from predictive to agile, there's a lot of resistance, or there's a lot of confusion or knowledge gap in understanding what exactly is agile as compared to predictive. So you also educate them. And in most cases, it's best to introduce agile slowly through either the pilot projects or products, or even through the exception deck that you can use, inception deck, not exception, inception deck. So you can also propose to have a hybrid, so that if it's possible, if it's applicable to that project, you can propose to have a hybrid, so that you move people slowly with predictive into agile. It depends on the context of the project. So when you're reading these PMP questions, be able to pick the project approach. Okay, look for common terms for predictive, look for common terms for agile, look for common terms for hybrids. Okay, I can tell you in some cases, especially as you are going to see the practice questions, in some cases, there is no need to know about it. Even if you apply the mindset, the principles, you can still get the answer correct. But where things are very clear in terms of which project approach is being followed, it's best for you to identify them as you answer the question. Number two, you need to find the real problem. Is it a conflict? Is it a risk? Is it a change? Is it quality? Is it stakeholder? Is it about value? Is it about compliance? So normally when you come across a scenario question in a PMP exam, I would encourage you to check three things. The first one, you need to understand the problem, okay? You need to understand the problem first. Problem statement. If you cannot define the problem statement, you are going to find it very difficult to answer some of these questions. So the first point is to understand the problem statement. What is it this question is asking for? Which domain is it asking for? Which knowledge area should I apply? Which process group should I apply? Which process can I apply? Okay? So without understanding, or without being able to create the problem statement, you are likely going to get the answer incorrect. So the first point is to understand the problem statement. The problem could be a conflict. So you are going to make a judgment. The problem here is a conflict. I can give you a good example. You have two members who are not able to work or communicate properly in a project, and that is now resulting in the delay of our project deliverables. So definitely that's a conflict that you need to understand more. What is causing these members not to work together? Okay. So you have managed to identify the problem as a conflict. That is number one. You might also identify a problem as a risk. Okay. So in the question, in the scenario question, be able to pick the problem statement. Is it a risk? You might overhear one of your project members saying, a specific vendor is not going to be able to deliver according to the plan. So that's a risk. You as a project manager, the first thing is to capture it as a risk in the risk register, and then meet with the members to try to understand why do they think that way, and how can you mitigate. Okay, so be able to check whether it's a risk. You might also have in this scenario question, the problem is about change. You are almost doing the last test on a certain product, and then you find a stakeholder is bringing in a change. You should be able to pick the problem here is to do with change. So it has to go through the change process if it's predictive, or it has to go through the reprioritization process in the product backlog by the product owner. So you should be able to pick that this is coming from a change. Then the other one is to do with quality. Okay. For example, a scenario where you have done most of the deliverables, but when you're presenting them to the users for review, they complained that it's not according to what they were expecting. Or maybe the performance is poor according to a certain benchmark. So what it means is the quality management was not done properly. So in that scenario question, the problem is to do with quality. So you can either revisit the quality plan to understand, you can revisit the acceptance criteria, you can even revisit the quality metrics, okay? So being able to identify the problem statements in a scenario question for your PMP, it will help you to pass a PMP exam. First time, okay? It could be something to do with a stakeholder. Say, for example, you were working with a specific sponsor, and during the execution of the project, they've decided to go and join another company, which means they are leaving the project, they are leaving the organization. You're likely going to get a new sponsor. You need to meet with that sponsor, the first thing, do your stakeholder analysis, stakeholder assessment matrix for the new sponsor. So when you are reading through these scenario questions for your PMP, you should be able to pick which one is which one is actually the problem. Is it a stakeholder? Is it quality? Are we talking of value or compliance? So in this case, it's a stakeholder issue. You now have changes in stakeholders, so you need to reassess again communication, engagements, and so on and so forth. So it could be a stakeholder issue as a problem. Then the other one you're going to face is most likely going to be also on the value. Whatever is being proposed by any stakeholder or project team, how is it going to affect the value being produced by the product or by the project? So you also need to see that problem statement on the value. Every project or product must bring some business value to the organization. It can also be on compliance. So compliance most likely is to do with the laws and the regulations. So be able to pick the problem statement from there. Then number two, what is expected now is for you to be able to use the mindset, okay? Here, we're talking of mindset. Use the mindset, okay? Use the mindset to eliminate some of these answers, okay? So this is mindset, number two. So you're able to pick your problem statement, which is here, okay? Now, using the mindset, you start eliminating some of these answers. For example, if one of the answers is saying immediately escalate to stable or replace the project member, fire the vendor, using your mindset, you can quickly eliminate some of those answers. So when you're reading your scenario questions, if one of the answers is eliminated by mindset, then you're going to be left with a few. All right? Then the third process is for you to be able to choose an answer which is going to resolve the problem. Okay? So resolve problem. Okay? So when you're reading these scenario questions, first, be able to define the problem statement. Second, be able to use the mindset for elimination of some of these answers. You're most likely going to be left with two. And for you to get the best out of those two, you now need to look for an answer that is going to resolve the problem. In most cases, these scenarios, they have problems or issues. So you want to resolve the problem. If something is not going to resolve the problem, say for example, the problem was to do with conflict management. If you don't see conflict resolution solution, most likely it's not going to resolve the problem. If it's something to do with communication and you don't see anything to do with communication, most likely it's not going to be the answer because it doesn't resolve the problem. If it's something to do with stakeholder engagement and you don't see any resolution that points towards stakeholder management, it's unlikely that it's going to be the answer. Okay. So using these three items, you should be able to read the scenario questions and you should be able to answer them in your PMP exam. Let's go to the third one. Third one is notice timing, okay? you'll find something saying first. Okay. So if you are reading a scenario question in a PMP environment or exam, and say the question is asking what should the project lead do first, or what should the project manager do first? If you look at the mindset, the first thing that you're likely going to do as a project manager is to assess, analyze, or even evaluate the situation. So you look for such terms. You're not jumping into answering the question. You're not jumping into action. You want to understand more. That's the first thing that you have to do. For example, there's a conflict within your team members or with a certain vendor or a specific stakeholder. The best that you can do is to assess the situation, is to understand the situation first before you propose any solution. What is the root cause of the conflict? Okay? Why is this specific stakeholder disengaged? Why is why is your team members, or why is one of your team members disengaged from the project, or is very slow, or is causing conflict, friction? So the first thing that you have to do is to understand the problem, is to assess, is to evaluate. Also, notice the timing on next. What should the project manager do next? So this is very important. Next, it means you are not jumping into action. Say, for example, you've heard about a risk through one of your project members. The first thing, what you have to do next is to make sure you record that risk in a risk register. Remember, skipping documentation in a project environment is not good. It's not even advisable. So once you get an issue, a risk, always make sure that is also recorded in the risk register. So let us continue with the notice of timing. So when it comes to the best, okay? So in the PMP exam, we are going to come across some questions which are going to request you to choose the best answer based on what is the best that the project manager should do. So in most cases, the answers are to do with servant leadership, for example. It's one of the best mindsets that you're going to come across, and also assessing and also evaluation. Okay. You're also going to have questions on should have done. Okay. It means you are looking at the prevention, what the project manager should have done in that scenario. So you might get to a situation where the scenario is giving you what has happened in the past, and the question is now focusing on what the project manager should have done to avoid that scenario. For example, if if one of the risks are materialized and then the project manager checked in the risk register and probably the risk does not exist, what should the project manager have done to prevent that? Because you go to your risk register, especially if it becomes an issue, you want to see the risk response that you're supposed to take. So such an example is asking you about how to prevent it, okay, going forward. So in your PMP exam, your answer should be focused on prevention, okay? All right, and then in some cases also you find except, okay? It's one of the timings also that you have to check in your PMP exam. Then the fourth one is to eliminate extreme answers first. So you could be asking, what are these extreme answers, okay? Say, for example, you see an answer which is eliminating everything else. For example, it says or, for example, or it might say, it might say always, okay? It might say always, or even it might say never, okay? It might also say never, okay? So you see such answers. In most cases, they are unlikely going to be the correct answers, Because, say, for example, it's saying you need to meet with all stakeholders. In some cases, it's not practical, okay? You want to meet with all stakeholders. In some cases, or in most cases, it's not practical to meet with all stakeholders, especially considering the day and age in which we are living, where most of the project team members and also stakeholders, they are dispersed geographically in different regions or even countries and continents. Then you might also find an answer in a PMP exam which says always. In most cases, it's not the answer, but you have to understand the question also. It might say, for example, always replace any underperforming team members. In most cases, that is not the answer. And then the other item also you might find is never. For example, it might say never update the risk register. It might say never update the issue log, as an example, or never listen to the stakeholder concern. In most cases, these are not always the answers. So it is important that in your examination, either preparation or real exam, you eliminate extreme answers. Now, the last one, but not least, is also to choose the action that is proactive, an action that is ethical, an action that is collaborative, an action that is value focused. So let us go through these 4 items one by one. So the first one is proactive. Let me share with you this. Every project manager is expected to be proactive. So you could be asking, Oscar, proactive in what way? There are different ways to be proactive as a project manager, especially when it comes to uncertainty. Uncertainty, we are talking about risk management. So you want to be proactive in terms of how you manage your risk. Identification of risks should be proactive. Creation of risk responses should also be proactive. Monitoring of these risks should also be proactive. In terms of also communication, you must also be proactive in terms of how you communicate with your stakeholders. In terms of stakeholder engagement, stakeholder analysis, you are also supposed to be proactive. In terms of quality through inspections or in-process quality checks. So basically, proactiveness is one of the traits of good project management. So in your PMP exam, you might come across answers that are making reference to statements that show that you have to be proactive. It's most likely going to be the good answer. Okay? So that's on proactive. The next one is ethical. So as a project manager, or us as project managers, we are expected to be ethical. What do we mean by this? We're expected to be honest. That's the first thing. We are also expected to tell the truth, okay? We're also expected to show transparency, okay? So each and every information that is available, it must be transparent to all the stakeholders, not just to one individual, but to all the stakeholders. And we must create an environment where even disagreements, they're allowed, okay? So ethical, you're not also supposed to break the law as a project manager. I've seen some scenarios where the project had to be stopped because it was breaking the law or the regulation. So that's the ethics that we're talking about. If you're a project manager, you've seen that what is happening is actually leading to breaking of the law. You're entitled to be ethical and stop people from breaking the law. I can understand in some situations it might even cost you a job, or it might even cost relationships. But for PMP purposes, you have to be an ethical project manager. You don't break the law. You don't misinform anyone. You're always honest in whatever you're doing in terms of transparency, and that will also going to help you. That will also going to help you to gain trust. Okay. You don't take things like bribes, even gifts, unless and until it's allowed by the law. But in most cases, you're not supposed to do that. So if you in your PMP you find an answer that shows ethical behavior from project management or from a project manager, that is most likely going to be the answer. Collaboration. In your scenario questions, you are most likely going to see answers to do with collaboration. What do we mean by collaboration? It means a project manager, you are not a subject matter expert. So the team is actually the subject matter experts. So you should always collaborate or work with the team to come up with the best solutions or to come up with the best alternatives that fits the problem at hand. So always collaborate, not just with your team, with all the stakeholders. Whether it's a sponsor, it's a vendor, it's a team member, it's senior management, it's project board, whoever is a stakeholder. Remember, a stakeholder is anyone who is affected by the project, either negatively or positively, or anyone who is perceived to be affected also by the project. So it is quite important that you collaborate with any of the stakeholders from the beginning of the project all the way up to the end. So collaboration is very, very important. Remember, your project team is also a stakeholder. Project team members are also stakeholders. So you must collaborate with each and every stakeholders throughout the project. So if you find in a PMP exam, there's an answer which is pointing towards more of collaboration, read it carefully, it's most likely going to be the answer. Then the last part we are looking at is value. Okay. So each and every project or each and every decision that you have to make in a project environment, it must be value driven or value focused. So what do you mean by this? You're going to reach a situation where you have to make a choice between one or two solutions in the project environment, not in the exam. So the best way to eliminate some of these is to look at the value of the project. What is going to add value to the project? It might add value in terms of reducing the timeline. It might also add value in terms of reducing the cost, or it might even add value in terms of efficiency. Okay. So you need to always focus on what is going to give business value to the project. So if there's a choice, the one that is going to give business value, you look for the word business value. You look for the word value in most cases, based on the question, understand the question, and read the answer. If that is going to be the answer, then you have to make that choice. So, in a nutshell, let us summarize how to read scenario questions. The first one is make sure you identify the approach is predictive, agile, or hybrid, and also find the real problem. Take the scenario question through 3 stages. The first one, problem statement. Identify the problem statement. The second one, eliminate answers using the mindset. There's a video on mindset on this. Then also look for the answer which is going to resolve the issue. Then also notice timing. First, what is the project manager going to do first or next? Or what is the best the project manager is supposed to do? Or what should have been done by the project manager? Okay. Also try to eliminate so many questions, so many answers, especially the ones which are using the words like all, never, always, like that. Then choose an action that is proactive, that is ethical, and also collaborative, as well as value focused. So this is what we have covered in this particular video. So in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through my final advice in terms of what helped me to pass PMP in the first attempt. So let us go through what I advise you to do. You know, an advice is something that you can take or you cannot take, or you can take, you can improve it or enrich it and become better. So let's move on. So my advice, especially on the final week, the strategy that you should always apply is do not chase new resources in the final week. This is very important. There are so many There's so many resources out there in terms of project management: electronic, non-electronic, printed, or not non-printed. So towards the end of the week, like I told you, it took me about 8 weeks for me to clear PMP because of other commitments. You might do it in 3 weeks or even 4 weeks. But in your final week, make sure you stick to what you were reading or what you were studying throughout your period. Don't try to introduce other materials again. Otherwise, it will take time of your revision into reading. So that's advice number one. Advice number two, always review your mistake log and mindset principles. This is what is going to help you during your PMP exam. Remember, you're supposed to create a mistake log. As you start through the PMP, you're making mistakes either in the practice questions or even in your revision or even in your understanding or reading or some of these questions. So make sure that you review your mistakes so that you don't make them again in your final exam. And the mindset principles are very, very important. We have covered 30 mindset principles. Make sure you also revisit them before you go for your exam during your last week. These mindset principles, they're going to help you to eliminate especially most of the wrong answers in the exam. As long as you apply your mindset principles, you're most likely going to get the answer correct. And also, remember, when you're reading these scenario questions, the first thing that you have to do is a problem statement definition. Try to understand what is the problem in that particular question. What is it the question is assessing me as an examination candidate? Then the second part is now to eliminate answers based on the mindsets. If something does not fall into a specific mindset, then that answer is most likely going to be the wrong one. For example, you might find an answer that says replace the project resource immediately or project team member immediately. If you apply the mindset where you're not supposed just to be replacing and firing people, that answer is unlikely going to be the correct one. Okay. Then the third one is also you need to practice the pace and the breaks, not just the knowledge. This is very important. Like I told you, I had to practice 2 of these breaks, and I can advise you take those breaks. I'm telling you that exam is very hard to sit on a chair for 4 hours without losing focus, at least for so many people. So always make sure that you are practicing the pacing, okay? You're also practicing the breaks, not just the knowledge. Then in your final week, one of the most important things to do is to have enough sleep. I can tell you this is very helpful. You have enough sleep. Don't sleep for 2 hours, 3 hours, at least 6 hours of sleeping. It helps your mind to relax, and it can even relieve you of the pressure of examination. So always have enough sleep and also hydration. Drink a lot of water, okay? For me, on top of hydration, I was also doing a lot of exercises during the last week as I prepare for my exam. The reason why I was doing that is when you're tired, you sleep better and you sleep for more hours than when you're not tired. And that exercising was also helping to take away the exam anxiety. So I would encourage you also, on top of getting water, just do some light exercise. You can even walk. It's also a better way to exercise. By the time you sleep very well. And also, being calm. Being calm is very important in an exam. If you panic, I'm telling you, you will fail. Especially the last 60 questions. Your mind is very tired. And you are going to be, I don't want to lie to you, if you're not careful, this is where you're going to use up most of your time. And the time might be even moving very fast. So you will need to make sure that you don't panic. Be calm. Focus on the exam. Don't focus on the time. Focus on the exam. Answer the questions as quickly as possible. And also make sure that you are calm and you are moving with the rhythm of the exam. Don't look so much on the time because the time is going to be ticking very fast. Now the last one is Go into the exam, okay, ready to reason, not to recite. Don't try to memorize the PMBOK. Don't try to memorize all the processes. Don't try to memorize the Agile terms and so on and so forth. Understand them and know how to apply them, okay? So this is where we are saying, don't try to recite anything. The moment you understand a certain concept, you appreciate a certain concept, it's very easy for you to apply it in the exam. So always make sure that you are going into the exam to reason, to think, because the exam is going to test you as a project manager. Are you able to think, not to recite? So if you can show that you can think in the exam, most of the answers, especially if you are able to define the problem, you use your mindset to eliminate. You look for a problem that is going to resolve the scenario. I'm telling you, you can actually pass the exam. For me, I gained more than 10 minutes because of that kind of elimination. And that also enables me to complete the exam. Most people who fail, I understand, they normally fail also to complete the exam. And in most cases, whatever you have not completed is going to be marked as a fail. It's unlikely going to be marked as a pass. So your final week strategy is very important. Don't chase every resource. Review your mistakes in the mistake log and your mindset principles. Practice the pacing and also the breaks. And also sleep, have hydration, drink a lot of water, be calm, and go into the exam to reason, not to recite. So, on the exam day, I'm now giving you the tips on the exam day. On the exam day, there are so many things that you have to get right for you to pass. So the first one is, make sure you are arriving or you are checking in early. This is very important. There's going to be some security steps that you have to follow. Especially if you are taking your exam at an examination center, person view, you are most likely going to be checked for your IDs. Make sure you have your IDs, the one with signature or the one without signature. Two of them, if you have, unless if you've got one document which has got both the details and also the signature. And they will take you through some security features, security procedures actually, to make sure that they verify you're the right person and they're taking the correct exam. So make sure that you check in early, okay? If you are lucky, some centers, if you check in early, they can even ask you to take the exam early. It all depends. But checking in early, I can advise 1 hour before your exam is good. It gives you time to relax. It gives you time to familiarize yourself with the exam room. And sometimes those places might be very cold also. So you might be interested in carrying your jacket in case the aircon cannot be controlled for that room. Maybe it's controlled centrally somewhere in the building. So you don't want to take your exam and you're busy shivering because of the temperatures. Then on the exam day, make sure you use the breaks intentionally. It's very important because it helps to reset your mind. This one I can emphasize to you. The moment you finish the first 60 or the first 80 and you take your break, remember you're stretching yourself, you're taking a walk after sitting for 2-3 hours or so. It's also good for your mind, it's also good for your body. The blood flows properly in your body because you're exercising, you're moving from one place to the other. And I can tell you 10 minutes is not a lot. So don't get overexcited that I've got 10 minutes. And once your 10 minutes is over, the clock will start ticking, so you lose time. So always be back to the exam room at least 3 or 2 minutes before your actual time. Then you can resume your exam. Then also you have an option to flag uncertain questions, okay? So you have an option to flag uncertain questions so that you are able to come back to them. You can highlight them, but do not over-review most of them until you change right answers into wrong answers. Okay, so you have to make sure that you are very sure of what you're doing. In most cases, your first answer is always the correct one. So when you over-review, you are most likely going to change the correct answer to become the wrong answer. So be careful on that. And from my experience, what I can advise is, if it's possible, try to select an answer and then you flag it, then you move on. In case you fail to get enough time to come back to the question, maybe the answer that you have selected is the correct one. It increases also your chances of passing. Then you also need to read. Is it first? Is it next? Is it best? Read it carefully. Okay. Sometimes it gives you a clue as to what is the most likely answer based on the choice that you are given. Remember, when you're going to the exam, you're not choosing the best answer of everything that you know. You're choosing the best answer from the 4 answers that you have been given. So you choose the best out of it. It might not be something that you like, but it might be the best for that particular scenario. Then also trust your preparation and keep moving. Don't try to read so many other new things the last day before exam. It's most likely that you might flash out or you might forget everything that you have been studying for weeks of your time. So just trust that you have prepared enough, okay? Trust that you have prepared enough, and then you keep moving. So make sure you're sleeping very well before your exam time. You're taking water, you exercise, you're taking food properly. And my advice is, if it's applicable, always try to make sure that you do these exams in the morning when you're fresh. I normally prefer that than to do it in the afternoon. You've taken breakfast, you've taken lunch, your body is also busy digesting. But it's all up to you. But make a judgment. But my preference is to take these exams in the morning as compared to be in the evening. I'm going to take you through the PMP mindset that you should carry with you into your examination room. So you could be asking, Oscar, why are we talking about these mindset or principles? I can tell you, the moment you master these principles and the mindset, you are going to be able to eliminate approximately 80% of the answers that you are going to get in your exams. So it's quite a very important process or activity that you have to take for you to understand this mindset. Even if when it comes to scenario questions, these mindsets are going to help you a lot. So let's move on. So principle number one, where's my pen here? So principle number one, you as a project manager, you should be a servant leader. What does it mean? It means you do not rush into command or even blame, escalate in a project environment. In PMP scenario questions, the project manager usually enables the team by removing blockers, okay? You remove blockers, you also do coaching, and you facilitate decision making. Then you also build trust, and you help the team to deliver. So this is the servant leader mindset. So let us look at an example of a question that you might, or you are likely going to get in your PMP examination. So question number one, a team member is struggling to complete assigned work on an Agile project. Other team members are frustrated and want the project manager to replace the person immediately. What should the project manager do first? So the very important point for your mindset is do first. This is what is very important. So as a project manager, what are you supposed to do first? Let us look at the answers. Escalate the issue to the project manager. If you remember, we said you should not rush to escalate. So this cannot be the answer. Okay, you can even eliminate it right away. Replace the team member with a more experienced resource. As a project manager, you don't rush into firing or replacing your team members. So most likely this is not the answer, okay? Meet with the team member to understand the issue and offer support. I'll leave this one, makes sense. Number D, reduce the scope so the team member can catch up. You don't just go and reduce scope as a project manager. So the best answer here is C. So how do we explain it? We have to explain it here. The PMP mindset favors coaching and understanding the root cause. This is very important. Coaching and understanding the root cause before punishment or escalation. A servant leader helps the team perform by removing impediments and supporting the team. So the best answer here is C. You need to meet with the team members to understand the issue and then offer support. Next one, number 2. So mindset number 2, assess before taking any action. This is very important. This word is very important. Assess before taking any action. As a project manager, you should be able to assess the situation, the issue, before taking any action. So what does it mean to assess before taking any action? Before acting, understand the situation, the impacts, facts, assumptions, also stakeholder involvement, and so on and so forth. So PMP questions often reward analysis before decision, especially when the problem is unclear. So you need to analyze it first. So let us look at an example of a question, practice question that you can use before you go for your exam. A vendor tells the project manager that a key component may arrive 2 weeks late, but the team member is not confirmed the effect on the schedule. What should the project manager do first? Again, you have this word first. Okay. So when the question is asking you about what the project manager is supposed to do first, it means you don't need to jump into action. So let us look at the answers now. Okay. Immediately approve overtime for the team. Don't overwork the team. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Assess the impact on the schedule, cost, risks, and affected deliverables. This one makes sense. Notify the customer that project will be delayed. If you notify the customer that the project will be delayed, how does it help the situation? It doesn't. So we just leave this one for now. Replace the vendor. You don't rush into replacing people without assessing. So looking at B and C, notifying the customer that the project will be delayed might not resolve the problem. Okay. So the best answer for this question is B. Assess the impact, okay, on the schedule, risks, and affected deliverables. This is very important. When you face any challenge, like in this case, the vendor is going to delay the delivery of one of the components. So what is the impact? How is it going to affect the project? So the best answer is B. And how do we explain that? The best first step is to assess the impact before deciding. So this is very important. Okay. Question number 3. Using this specific mindset, collaborate before escalating. This is very important. You need to collaborate with everyone, stakeholders, your team members, before you actually escalate. So what does it mean, this principle or this mindset? Escalation is not the first response. This is very important. Escalation is not the first response unless authority agents, safety compliance, of course, if there's something to do with safety or unresolved conflict requires it. Okay. Then let us look at an example practice question number 3. 2 functional managers disagree about which resource should support a critical activity. The disagreement is delaying planning. What should the project manager do first? So, like any other PMP question, the first action, the first thinking that you should have is to be able to formulate the problem statement. So, if you look at this question, the problem is there's disagreement. So, likely there's a conflict. Okay. So, the problem statement is disagreement between the functional managers on a specific resource. And this disagreement is actually delaying the planning. Okay, so what should the project manager do first? Remember our mindset. We need to collaborate first. So let us look at the answers. The first one is escalate. You don't just rush into escalation. So this one we can eliminate right away. Facilitate a meeting with the project managers to review priorities and constraints. Okay, we can leave this one. Assign the resource without consulting anyone. This does not have the principle of collaboration, okay? Without consulting, okay? So definitely this is unlikely going to be the answer. Okay, remove the activities from the schedule. You don't just go and remove activities from the schedule. So the best answer here is B. You facilitate. Facilitation allows also for collaboration. So how do we explain that? The answer is usually preferred collaboration before escalation. So the project manager should facilitate the decision using facts, okay, and priorities, and then stakeholder input. So the best answer here is B. Question number 4. So if you look at number 4 mindset, solve problems at the lowest level appropriate, okay? So what does it mean here? It means you don't start by escalating. You need to solve the problem first, and then it's only when you are not able to solve the problem, then you can think of escalation. So it handles issues with the team, okay? Handle issues with the team, responsible stakeholders first when possible. Use escalation only when the issue exceeds the project manager's authority. Remember, the project manager's authority is defined in the project charter. So question number 4. A developer reports that a testing environment is unavailable and work may slip if it's not restored soon. What should the project manager do first? This is very important. What should the project manager do first? So let us look at the answers now using this principle of solve problems at the lowest appropriate level. Okay. A, ask the sponsor to intervene immediately. So here you are not solving the problem at the lowest level. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Work with the technical lead and environment owner to restore access and assess impact. We leave this one. Work with. This one, it shows you are collaborating. Tell this customer the release date is no longer achievable. This will not solve the problem, definitely. Because the problem is the developer reports. Remember, you should be able to formulate the problem statement. The developer reports that a testing environment is unavailable, okay? And work is going to be delayed. So how do we resolve? This one does not resolve the delay of the work. Remove testing from project scope. There's no way you can remove testing. And you cannot just remove things without getting approval. So the best answer here is B. You need to work with the technical team. So this works to resolve the problem with the technical team before any escalation. And how do we explain that? The project manager should first work with the accountable members to resolve the blockers. Escalation can follow later, okay? If the issue cannot be resolved in the appropriate level. So the best answer here is B. Right, mindset number 5, sorry. Protect transparency and also trust. What does it mean? Good project managers create visibility. They share accurate information, encourage honest reporting, and avoid hiding problems to make the project look better. So let us look at a practice question on this. A project manager discovers a quality issue that may affect an upcoming customer demo. Some team members suggest hiding it until after the demo. What should the project manager do? So here we don't have do first or next, but what is the best that the project manager should do? Remember our principle, our mindset is to protect transparency and also trust. So what is our problem statement here? The project team discovers a quality issue. So there's a quality issue as a problem in the upcoming customer demo. Some team members suggest hiding it. You see, this is what we're talking about. So there's a quality issue. Some team members are suggesting to hide it. But our principle or our mindset, it says we should have transparency and trust. So what should the project manager do? We look at the answers now. Hide the issue to protect stakeholder confidence. So this is hide. It's going against our mindset of transparency and trust. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Cancel the project immediately. As a project manager, you cannot just cancel projects. You need to understand the issue and you need to report properly. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Ensure the issue is documented, analyzed, communicated appropriately with a recovery plan, okay? Ask the team to work privately and tell no one. This is the same like hiding, so unlikely going to be the answer. So the best answer here is number C, okay? So number C is the answer. Ensure the issue is documented, analyzed, and communicated appropriately with a recovery plan. So that is the best answer. How do we explain that? Transparency builds trust. So the project manager should always avoid hiding and also instead of communicating facts and also impacts. So the project manager is expected to provide enough transparency and also to build trust. So the best answer here is C. Right. Mindset number 6. Remove impediments for the team. This is very critical. Okay. Remove the impediments for the team. What does it mean? In agile and hybrid environments, the project manager, okay, or servant leader supports delivery by removing blockers, protecting flow, and also helping the team on the value. So number 6, let's look at it now. During a sprint, the team is blocked because required access to a shared system has not been approved. What should the project manager do first? Here we have the word first, okay? So what is our problem statement? Our problem statement is the team is blocked, okay? Because the required access to a shared system has not been approved. So the team is blocked because there's no approval, okay? So that's our problem statement. So let us look at the answers now. Tell the team to wait until access is approved, okay? So the team must wait. So the moment you see the word wait, it means there's going to be some delay. As a project manager, you are not supposed to go for delays in a project. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Remove the blocker by coordinating with the access owner and tracking the impediments. We are removing blocker here. So this is very important, removing the blocker. Ask the product owner to cancel the sprint. Product owner cannot just cancel a sprint like that. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Replace the team members who cannot. You cannot just replace members. You don't fire people in a project. So the best answer here is B. You need to remove the blockers. Okay. So that by coordinating with the access owner and tracking the impediments. How do we explain that? The project manager is supposed to be a servant leader who removes impediments. Okay. Waiting passively or blaming the team does not support value delivered. So this is very, very important. So the best answer here is B. Right. Mindset number 7. Coach before commanding. This is very important. Okay. Coach before you command. So how do we explain this mindset? When people need support, the project manager should coach, guide, or enable first. Okay. So commanding may create resistance and does not build long-term capability. Okay. So let us look at a practice question based on this mindset of coaching before commanding. A new team member is unsure how to update the project board and keeps missing status updates. Okay. What should the project manager do first? So we have first again. So what is our problem statement? A new team member is unsure, okay, how to update the project board and keeps missing status updates. So the problem is the team member does not know and is also missing status updates. So what should the project manager do first? Let us look at the answers now. Coach the team member on the expected process and provide support. Makes sense. Report the team member to human resources. Remember our servant leader mindset. Don't just rush to report team members to human resources or to escalate to project board. Remove the team member. Don't remove or fire people without understanding or coaching them. Update the project board alone without discussing the problem. This one, you are just hiding the problem. You are not confronting the problem. You have to confront the problem. So the best answer for this mindset and question is A. So the best answer is A. So you coach before you command. So how do we explain that? Coaching improves capability and prevents repeated issues. So peer mindset favors helping people to succeed before you do any punitive actions. Mindset number 8. Engage stakeholders early and often. This is very important. I've seen so many project managers making mistakes here. They don't engage stakeholders early. So what does it mean? in terms of this mindset. It means stakeholders should not be conducted only when approval is needed or a problem occurs. Okay, engagement is continuous, planned, also active, and based on the stakeholder needs. So let us look at the practice question now. Number 8. A stakeholder who was rarely consulted rejects a deliverable late in the project, saying it does not meet organizational needs. What should the project manager do first to prevent this? What should the project manager do? What should the project manager have done to prevent this? So it means how the project manager was supposed to prevent this issue. So now let us look at the answers. Waited until the final acceptance to involve the stakeholder. Waiting is not good for a project. It's going to lead to delay. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Then B, engage the stakeholder earlier and validate expectations throughout the project. Yes. This makes sense. Removed the stakeholder from the register. You don't just go and remove the stakeholder from the register. Okay. Asked the sponsor to force acceptance. You don't force things in a project. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Okay. So the best answer for this question is B. You need to engage the stakeholder and validate expectations. So how do we explain this answer? We need continuous engagement to reduce surprises. Stakeholder register and engagement plan should guide communication and also validation. This is very, very important. So the best answer here is B. Now, let's go to mindset number 9. Mindset number 9 is to use data. You might want to call it data, is the same thing, and not assumptions. Okay. So avoid deciding based on rumors as a project manager or pressure. Use the verified information, project artifacts, metrics, evidence, and expert judgment. Okay. So let us go through a practice question on this mindset. Remember, we are supposed to use data here. A team member says a requirement is probably no longer needed, but there is no confirmation from the customer. What should the project manager do first? So what is our problem statement here? A team member says a requirement is probably no longer required. Okay. So there is no confirmation from the customer. This is the issue. So what should the project manager do first? Okay. Remove the requirements to save time. Project manager cannot just remove requirements. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. We can eliminate it. Verify the requirements with the appropriate stakeholder and review the requirements documentation. Makes sense. Tell the team member to ignore. You don't ignore anything in a project environment. You confront the problem. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Escalate directly to senior management. Don't rush to escalation. Remember our mindset number 1. So the best answer for this question is B, which is also verify the requirement with appropriate stakeholder and review the requirements documentation. How do we explain that? A project manager should rely on verified data and approved artifacts. Assumptions should be validated before they drive decision making. So the best answer here is B. Mindset number 10. Okay. On mindset number 10, choose the prevention over correction. This is very important. Oh, oops. So let me my pen here. Okay. So choose prevention over correction. So what does it mean, this mindset? It means strong project management, prevent problems through planning, risk management, quality practice, stakeholder engagement, and clear communication instead of reacting after failure. Okay, so this principle is very important. It's better you prevent something from happening than trying to correct it. It might be costly to correct it as compared to preventing it. So, question number 10. Let's go to the practice question. A project has repeated defects during customer acceptance testing. What should the project manager emphasize to prevent recurrence? So what is our problem statement here? Repeated defects, okay? So this is the issue. The issue is with the defects. They're recurring. So what should the project manager emphasize to prevent this? Okay? Remember, you're supposed to choose prevent over correction. So let us look at the answers now. Increase inspection only at the end of the project. So if you are going to do this at the end of the project, you are most likely going to correct than to prevent. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Blame the testing team for missing defects. Don't blame anyone in a project. Try to prevent or do proper risk management or quality management. So this is unlikely going to be the answer, okay? Improve quality planning, root cause analysis, and prevent activities earlier in the process. I like this one, prevent. Remember, our mindset is prevention. Ask the customer to accept the defect. There's no way a customer is going to affect a defect. So unlikely, this is not going to be the answer, okay? So the best answer here is C, okay? You need to improve quality planning, root cause analysis, and prevent. How do you explain this answer? Prevention is better than correction. This is very important. So the best answer for this mindset is C. Mindset number 11, follow change control process in predictive work. So this is predictive. You should always follow change control. Okay. This is a very good mindset for predictive work. So what does it mean? It means in predictive projects, changes will affect scope, schedule, and cost, even baselines. Okay? So do not approve baseline changes informally, which means you have to follow the change control process. So practice question number 11. A customer asks the project manager to add a new reporting feature to a predictive project. So this is a predictive project, adding a new feature, okay? The feature will increase cost and extend project schedule, okay? So the problem statement here is, there is a new feature that is required, okay? And this is likely going to increase costs and extend schedule. So that becomes a problem. It's a risk. What should the project manager do first? What should the project manager do? Okay, so this is very important. There's no first here. So let us go through the answers now. Ask the team to edit immediately. You're not following a change control process. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Submit the requests through the integrated change control process. I like this one. You are submitting a request to a change control process. Okay, so there's change control process here. Reject the change without analysis. If you're a project manager, you don't just reject changes. You take them through the change control process and also analyzing the impact. Add the feature only if the team has free time. It's unlikely that the team is going to have some free time in a project environment. So this is unlikely going to be an answer, and this one is unlikely going to be an answer. So the best answer for this scenario, okay, is to follow the change control process in a predictive environment. So the best answer is B. How do we explain that? Predictive projects rely on formal change control for baseline and also the impact. So this is very important. So the best answer here is B. Now, let's go to mindset number 12. Let Agile teams self-organize. This is very important. It's one of the principles of Agile methodology. Your team should be self-organizing. So what does it mean? In Agile work, the team decides how to do the work. This is different from predictive, where the project manager will detect what has to be done. The project manager supports the environment, remove blockers, and also protect collaboration rather than assigning every task. Okay, so let us look at the practice question. During the sprint planning, which means this is Agile, you see this sprint planning, a project manager starts assigning each task to specific developers. So this is a red flag. The team looks disengaged. What should the project manager do instead? Okay, so our problem statement here is project manager is assigning work, and that is causing the team to be disengaged. So let us look at the answers now. Allow the team to self-organize and select work based on capacity. Okay, makes sense. I like the word allow, self-organize. Cancel sprint planning. This will not resolve the problem. The problem is you are assigning work in an Agile environment as a project manager, and the team is disengaged. So this will not solve the problem. So we take this one out. Assign all work to fastest developer. This does not solve the problem. The problem, the team is disengaged. Okay, so this one is out. Ask the sponsor to choose the task. You don't just go to sponsor. This is like escalation. So the best answer for this question is A, okay? Why A? Because it allows the team to self-organize and select work based on capacity and skills, okay? So how do you explain the answer? In Agile, teams should be self-organizing around the work. So this is very, very important. And that is why A is the best answer for this question. Mindset number 13, prioritize value delivery. What does this mean? The exam often rewards decision and protect customer value. You don't do a project just for the sake of doing a project. There must be some value the organization is actually getting from that project. Okay, so business outcomes and also usable deliverables. Prioritize what creates value rather than just completing activities. So let us look at the practice question. Remember, this must be value driven. Practice question number 13. An Agile team has more backlog items than it can complete in the next release. What should the project manager do with the product owner? Okay. So what is our problem statement here? An Agile team has more backlog. So the issue is more backlog items to complete, okay, in the next release. All right. So what should the project manager do with the product owner? So product owner is the one who is responsible for prioritization. Number 1, prioritize items based on business value. That is answer number A. I like this one because there's a way to prioritize here, which is very important. Select the easiest items first. You don't select this. You use the backlog, which is also maintained by the product owner. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Ask the team to work on all items at once. The team is already overloaded, so there's no logic for you to ask them to work on this more. So this is unlikely going to resolve the problem. Stop the release until every request. You don't stop work in a project environment. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. So the best answer is A, okay? So A, how do we explain this? Value delivery guides prioritization. So as the product owner is prioritizing these features, they start with the features with high value to the project and also to the organization. So that gives the best answer is A. Mindset number 14. Tailor the approach to context. This is very important. Project context is very important. You don't just apply what you have done previously to each and every project. Every project is unique. Do not assume one method for every project. Good. The project manager tailors life cycle, governance, communication, controls, and also practices based on risk, which is uncertainty, complexity, and also on stakeholder needs. So this is a very important mindset to take into your PMP exam. So let us look at the practice question. Practice question is number 14. A project has stable regulatory requirements but uncertain user experience features. What approach should the project manager do? What approach should the project manager consider? Okay. So what is our problem statement? The project has a stable regulatory requirements but uncertain user expectation in terms of user experience, in terms of features. So these are problem statements. Now let us look at the answers. Use only one fixed approach for the entire project. Remember, you're supposed to tailor. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Tailor a hybrid approach with predictive controls for stable requirements and agile techniques for uncertain features. I like this one. It talks about tailoring, so I'll leave it here. Avoid planning until all unnecessary all uncertainty disappears. You see, you cannot avoid planning as a project manager. What if it doesn't disappear? So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Ignore the regulatory. Regulatory is mandatory. You're supposed to do it. So the way they ignore here makes this eliminated as an answer. So the best answer here is B. You need to tailor the hybrid approach, okay? How do we explain this? Tailoring, it means adapting the approach to the situation. This is the context that we're talking about. Project context is what you're going to use to tailor. So the best answer here is B. Right. Mindset number 15. Update plans, artifacts when information changes. So each time something has changed in a project, you need to make sure that you are also updating the plans so that they're always aligned in terms of objectives and also goals of the project. So what does it mean? Plans, logs, registers, and also baseline must reflect current approved information. When facts change, okay, update the right artifacts and communicate the change. This is very important. So let us look at a practice question now. A newly identified risk has a high probability of affecting critical milestone. What should the project manager do? Okay. So what is our problem statement? There's a new risk here, which is likely going to affect a critical milestone. Okay. So let us look at the answers now. Ignore the risk until it becomes an issue. Never ignore anything in a project. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. B, update the risk, analyze the risk, and plan an appropriate response. Okay, I like this one because you're updating the risk register. C, change the project baseline immediately. You don't change the baselines immediately. They have to be approved, okay? So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Delete lower priority risks from the register. You don't delete anything from the risk register. You just update it, either as open or closed. So the best answer here is B. Okay, well, how do we explain B? Project artifacts must stay current, okay? The risk register should be updated and used to guide analysis, response, and also planning of communication. So the best answer here is a B. Mindset number 16. Manage risk proactively. This is very important, proactively. As a project manager, whatever you do in a project environment, it must be done proactively. So risk management is continuous throughout the project. Analysis, respond, remember the risk cycle until you communicate. So let us look at the practice question now. A supplier has a history of late deliveries, and the project depends on critical components from the supplier. What should the project manager do? So our problem statement is a supplier has got a history of late deliveries, okay? Especially for critical components. So what should the project manager do? So let us go through the answers now. So the first one is wait until supplier misses the delivery. As a project manager, you don't wait. You don't cause any delays in a project by waiting. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Identify and analyze the risk, then develop a risk response as contingents or alternate sourcing. I like this one, risk response. Okay, I'll leave this one for now. Remove procurement from the project plan. This does not solve the problem, so we are going to eliminate this one. Ask the team to ignore the supply performance. You don't ignore stakeholders in a project environment. You don't ignore even issues. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. So the best answer here is B. You need to identify and analyze the risk, then develop a response as a contingent or alternate sourcing. All right. So how do you explain this? Proactive risk management addresses uncertainty. So this is very important. So as a project manager, you should be proactive in managing your risks. Okay. So you're managing your risk here. All right. So the best answer is B. Now, mindset number 17. Communicate based on stakeholder needs. This is very important. You customize stakeholder needs in terms of communication. Don't create one report for all stakeholders. So what does it mean? Communication is not a one-size-fits-all. Tailor frequency, format, even language and details and channel to stakeholder expectation and the communication management plan. So this is very important. You tailor according to stakeholder expectation. So let us look at the practice question now. An executive sponsor wants one-page monthly summary, while the technical team, they need a detailed weekly issue report. What should the project manager do? Okay. So our problem statement is we have two stakeholder sponsor. They want one-page monthly, and then the technical team, they also want the weekly detailed one. What should the project manager do? Let us look at the answers now. Send the same detailed report to everyone. Remember, you're supposed to communicate based on the needs. So you can't be sending the same. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Tailor communication formats and frequency to each stakeholder group. I like this one. Stop sending reports until someone complains. You don't do that. Remember, you're supposed to be transparent and honest in terms of sending information. So you don't stop sending information. Send only verbal updates. In some cases, you don't need to send verbal updates. And in this scenario, they have requested written ones. So these are likely going to be the answer. So the best answer here is B. Okay. So how do we explain B? Stakeholder communication should be planned and tailored. Different stakeholders, they need different levels of detail. So that makes B the best answer. We go to mindset number 18. Understand root cause before solution. This is very important. Before solution, you should understand the root cause. So what does it mean? Do not treat symptoms as full problems. Identify the underlying cause before selecting a corrective action, especially with quality, conflict, delays, and also performance issues. So root cause analysis and understanding is very important. So let us look at the practice question. A project has missed 3 internal review deadlines. So it has missed 3 internal review deadlines. The team says they are too busy, but no analysis has been performed. So there's no analysis done here. Okay. What should the project manager do first? Okay. So our problem statement is they've missed internal reviews and there's no analysis done. And yet our mindset is saying you should do a root cause analysis first before you do anything. Okay. So let us look at the answers now. We now need, on A, it's saying add more meetings immediately. This does not resolve the problems. You can have the meetings and still miss the deadlines. Then conduct root cause analysis with the team to understand the reasoning. I like this. I like the word root cause here. Blame the team and issue. Never blame your team in a project environment. So this is not going to be an answer. Remove all review activities from the plan. You don't just go and remove things before understanding, which makes the best answer to be B. So the best answer is to conduct a root cause analysis. How do you explain that? Root cause analysis prevents superficial fixes. The project manager should understand why deadlines are missed before selecting a solution. So the best answer here is B. Mindset number 19. Never ignore compliance or ethics. Okay, ethics is the best way to do in a project, and then compliance is what you're supposed to follow. So what does this mean? The project manager must act ethically and comply with the laws, regulations, contracts, safety rules, okay, organizational policies, even when the delivery pressure is high. So let us look at the practice question. A team member suggests skipping a required regulatory review to meet deadline because no one will notice. What should the project manager do? So a team member is suggesting skipping. So that's our problem. And assuming no one is going to notice. So what should the project manager do? So remember, the project manager is not supposed to ignore any compliance. And one of the team members is suggesting that. Let us look at the answers. Skip the review to protect the schedule. Okay. This is not going to solve the issue because this is a compliance issue that you are supposed to, or regulatory issue that you are supposed to follow. Ensure the regulatory review is completed and communicate any schedule impact. I like the way regulatory review. Ask the team member to keep the decision private. No. In project, you must have transparency. So this is not going to be the answer. Let the customer decide whether laws apply. A law is mandatory, so no one is going to decide against it. So the best answer here is going to be B. Regulatory review is completed and also, how do we explain that? Compliance and ethics are non-negotiable. So compliance and ethics, you should follow them. So this is a very important mindset. Okay. So the best answer here is B. Now let us look at mindset number 20. Respect the project charter and objectives. So what does it mean? The project charter authorizes the project and defines high-level objectives, success criteria, and also authority for the sponsor and project manager. So decisions should stay aligned with the charter and also the business purpose. Okay. So let us now look at a practice question and how to apply this principle or this mindset. A department asks the team to add work that does not support the approved project objectives. So there is work which does not support the project objectives. What should the project manager do first? So the problem statement is they want to add some work which does not support the objectives of the project. Okay, so this is the objective. So let us look at the answers now. Accept the work because the stakeholder request. You don't just accept the work like that. If it does not add value to the objectives, it's unlikely going to be the answer. Review the project charter, objectives, and then handle the request through appropriate decision making. I like this one. You are going back to the charter. Okay. Remember, you're supposed to respect the charter and the objectives here. Tell the team to begin immediately. You don't just go for changes just like that. If it's not meeting the project objectives, it's unlikely going to be the answer. Cancel the project. As a project manager, you don't just rush into canceling the project, unless it is for safety or it's something to do with compliance. Making the best answer here to be B. Okay, so the best answer is B. How do we explain B? The project charter anchors the project purpose. Okay, so all objectives or the goals of the project, you get them from the project charter, making B the best answer. So mindset number 21. Use retrospectives and lessons learned continuously. This is very important. After every iteration or every phase or stage, make sure that you update your lessons learned. So what does it mean? Lessons are not only project closures. Agile retrospectives and ongoing lessons, they also help teams improve throughout the project. So you should always be recording this because it helps you to improve throughout the project. So number 21, practice question. For each sprint, so this is Agile, for each sprint, the team repeats the same handoff problem between development and testing. What should the project manager encourage? So what is our problem statement here? In each sprint, the team is repeating the same handoff problem between development, team, and also testing. So what should the project manager encourage? Remember, we are using retrospectives and lessons learned continuously as a mindset. Wait until the closure to discuss the problem. In a project, never wait as a project manager. That will cause delays. Okay? So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Number B, use the retrospective to identify improvements and implement actions. Okay? I like this one. Retrospective is there. Stop holding retrospectives. You should always be having retrospectives. This is part of an agile flow. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Ask one person to decide without team input. In agile environment, team is the best that can decide, not one person. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Making the best answer for this question to be B. Okay. So the best answer here is B, which is to use retrospective to identify improvements, to implement agreed actions. How do we explain that? Continuous improvement is a core mindset. Retrospectives, they help team inspect, adapt, and also prevent problems, making B the best answer. Mindset number 22, facilitate consensus when possible. So facilitation is very important. Consensus is agreement when possible. So what does it mean? Project managers do not need to detect every decision. They don't need to dictate every decision. When stakeholders disagree, facilitate constructive decision, okay? Facilitate constructive decision and also clarify criteria and also help the group to reach an informed decision. So you're a facilitator when you're a project manager. So let us look at the practice question based on this mindset. Stakeholders disagree on which feature should be included in the next release. What should the project manager do first? So our problem statement is there's a disagreement on a specific feature for the next release. A, choose the feature personally without a discussion. Remember, you're supposed to facilitate, and the project manager is not subject matter expert. So you cannot choose this as your first action. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Facilitate a prioritization discussion using agreed criteria such as value, risk, and agents. I like this one. There's a word facilitate here. Okay. Include every feature regardless of capacity. Okay. So this is unlikely going to happen. You cannot just include every feature like that. Escalate immediately to CEO. A project manager is employed to resolve project issues, not to escalate, making B the best answer. So B is the best answer. Facilitate prioritization discussion using agreed criteria. Why is it the best? Facilitation helps stakeholders align criteria and also trade-offs, making B the best answer. Okay, mindset number 23. Do not jump into firing, okay? Do not jump into firing or replacing or even blaming any stakeholder in the project. What does it mean? Extreme people actions, okay? Extreme people actions are rarely the first answer. So which means in most cases, whatever is extreme is not normally the answer. Start with understanding, supporting, coaching, and also expectations and root cause before punitive decisions. Okay. So practice question. A team member makes a mistake that causes rework. So this is the problem statement. There is a mistake which is causing rework. The issue appears to be related to unclear instructions. So they are unclear instructions. What should the project manager do first? Okay, this is very important. So the problem statement is there's a mistake that is causing rework from one of the team members and also unclear instructions. What should the project manager do? Number one, remove the team member from the project immediately. Remember, we are not firing, okay, as a mindset or principle. So this is unlikely going to be the answer because of remove the team member. Understand what happened, clarify expectations, and also support corrective action. Good. This looks, it makes sense for me. Report the person to senior management. Never report anyone in a project. So these are likely going to be the answer. Ignore the mistake and hope it does not happen. Never ignore anything in a project environment. Always try to confront problems and resolve them. Making B the best answer. So B is the best answer. Why is it the best answer? Blaming or replacing first is usually weak, okay? The project manager should understand the cause and help correct the problem, making B the best answer. Okay, mindset number 24. Train, coach when performance gaps appear. So this is very important mindset. So what does it mean? When a gap is caused by knowledge, okay, by skill or even by process understanding, the project manager should support capacity development rather than assume bad intent, okay? So practice question based on this mindset. A team member consistently enters incomplete, okay? Consistently enters incomplete risk information because they do not understand the required fields. What should the project manager do? So we have a knowledge gap here. They don't understand the required field. A, provide guidance or training on how to complete the risk register, okay? I like the way provide guidance. Delete the risk register. You don't delete the risk register. You need it throughout the project. Escalate immediately to the sponsor. You don't rush to escalation. A project manager is supposed to resolve project issues, not escalate. Assign all risk updates to another team permanently. You are not resolving the problem. The problem is about skills. So you need to resolve the skills, making A the best answer. You're providing guidance and also training. Why A? Training and coaching addresses capability gaps. So making A the best answer. We are looking now at mindset number 25. Protect the team from unnecessary disruption. This is very important. Your team should be protected from unnecessary disruptions. They will always face disruptions. But if you want them to meet the project objectives, you need to protect them from those disruptions. So what does it mean? The project manager should shield the team from avoidable distractions or conflicting priorities and uncontrolled work so they can focus on delivering values. This is very, very important. If you have got a team which is working on specific deadlines and tasks, it's best that you protect them from any disruptions. So let us look at the practice question. So practice question number 25. Several stakeholders keep contacting developers directly with agent side requests during the sprint. So there are side requests which are coming from stakeholders. What should the project manager do? Okay. So remember, the team is supposed to be protected from disruptions. And in this case, they're getting side requests, which means they're being distracted from their focus. Okay. So A, allow the side requests because stakeholders are important. This is disrupting the team, so it's unlikely going to be the answer if you allow it to happen. B, work with the product owner and stakeholders to route requests through the backlog and also protect the sprint. I like this one because you are working with the stakeholders to remove the disruptions. Tell the developers to ignore every step. You don't ignore stakeholders. You engage them and try to understand the root causes. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Cancel the sprint immediately. You don't cancel the sprints because they are side requests, making B the best answer. So B is the best answer in this scenario. Work with the product owner, okay, and stakeholders to route requests through the backlog and also protect the sprint focus. So why is that an answer? The team needs focus and clear intake path. So you don't want your team to be distracted during the sprint or any task being executed, making B the best answer. Mindset number 26. In Agile, involve the product owner for prioritization. This is very important. Don't make a mistake I've seen with other project managers trying to prioritize features in the product backlog. That is the responsibility of the product owner. So what does it mean? Product owner owns backlog ordering and also maximizing value. Remember, Agile is value driven. So maximization of value must come from the product owner, not anyone else. The project manager should not independently reprioritize product work without product owner. So as a mindset, always make sure that the product owner is owning the backlog. And if the product owner is not understanding, it is your responsibility as a project manager to actually educate them to appreciate the benefits of doing that. So, practice question 28. A stakeholder 26. A stakeholder asks the project manager to move a new feature to the top of the Agile backlog. Okay, new feature to the top of the Agile backlog. What should the project manager do? Okay, A, move the feature immediately without discussion. So remember, you are not supposed to prioritize any features in the product backlog. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Involve the product owner to evaluate and prioritize the request. I like this. There's involvement of a product owner. Reject the request because the backlog can never change. Backlog in a Agile project environment, they are always changing. So reject is not going to work. Ask the development team to decide business priority case. Development team is responsible for creating deliverables and not for product backlog, making B the best answer. So B is the best answer. Why is it the best answer? Product owner is accountable for prioritization, and then project manager facilitates the process. So making B the best answer. Mindset number 27. In predictive, use change control board. CCB is a change control board for baseline changes. For anything that you want to change, it must be approved by the change control board. So what does it mean? A predictive project is an approved baseline, okay? Changes to scope or schedule or cost should be approved through a change control board, which is CCB. So this is the CCB that I'm talking about, okay? So let us look at the practice question now. A predictive project sponsor asks for a scope addition that will change the approved. So scope addition that will change the approved cost baseline. What should the project manager do? Okay. So the problem statement here is the sponsor is intending to change the scope, okay, and that is going to change also the cost baseline. But our mindset, it says that it has to be approved by the CCB, which is a change control board. So A, implement the change because the sponsor requested it. You cannot just quickly go and implement. It has to be approved first. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Prepare and submit a change request to the CCB or approved change authority. I like this one. You are submitting a change request. So there's a change process that is ongoing here. Tell the team to absorb the change without documentation. Documentation must be done throughout the project. So this is a violation of one of those principles. Remove unrelated deliverable without approval. You don't change anything as a project manager without approval, making a B the best answer for this scenario, okay? So why is B the best answer? Even sponsor requests must follow a change control baseline, okay? Because they're going to affect them. So making B the best answer. Right. We are now looking at mindset number 28. Keep benefits and business value viable. Okay, this is very important. If you have this mindset, it's going to help you in your PMP exam. Projects exist to deliver benefits, not just outputs. Okay, check whether the work still supports business value, benefits realization, and also organizational objectives. This is very, very important. So this is the mindset that you can also use to eliminate some of the answers. So number 28, if you look at the question now, midway through a project, market conditions change and one planned feature may no longer deliver expected benefits. What should the project manager do? So remember, the mindset here is to keep benefits and also business value visible. So this is where we are visible. It must be visible, okay? So if you look at this scenario, there is one feature which may no longer be delivering expected benefits to the organization. So this is our problem statement. So let us now go through the answers. A, continue exactly as planned without review. So here you're just ignoring. You're not taking any action as a project manager. So this is unlikely going to be the answer. Review the business value with the sponsor, product owner, and adjust through the proper process if needed. Okay, I like this. Because you are doing a review of business value. Remember, cancel all project work immediately. As a project manager, you cannot just cancel project work just like that because one of the feature is no longer delivering value. So these are likely going to be the answer. Hide the information until the end. Never hide anything in a project. Transparency and trust is very important. Be honest, ethics. So these are likely going to be the answer. Making B the best answer for this scenario. Okay, so B is our answer. Why is B the best in this scenario? The project manager should keep benefits visible and ensure it remains aligned with value, making B the best answer. Mindset number 29, balance people, okay, process, and also business outcomes. What does it mean? Strong PMP answers considers health, process discipline, and also business value together. Over-focusing on one dimension can create a poor project outcome. Say, for example, we are over-focusing more on risks as compared to quality. Most likely, that is going to affect the project. So you should not focus more on one dimension and ignoring the rest. So let us look at the practice questions now. A project is on schedule, but the team is showing signs of burnout, okay? And quality defects are increasing. So this is our problem statement. What should the project manager do? So what is our problem statement here? The team is showing signs of burnout and the quality defects are also increasing, okay, because of the burnout. So remember, you're supposed to balance people. Process, and also business outcomes. So let us go through the answers now. A, celebrate because the schedule is still on track. You're ignoring the problem here. You should resolve the issue to do with the burnout and quality. So these are likely going to be the answer. Assess team capacity, okay? Quality trends, delivery commitments, then adjust the plan accordingly or collaboratively. I like this one. Demand longer hours until the project ends. Never overwork your team members in any project environment. So these are likely going to be the answer. Ignore defects until customer acceptance. Never ignore anything in a project. Always confront everything in a project. Making B the best answer. So the best answer here is B. You need to assess team capacity, quality trends, and also deliver commitments. Then adjust plan accordingly. So why is this the best answer? A good project manager balances schedule, okay, quality, and also people and value. So this is very important mindset. You balance your people, process, and also business outcome, making B the best answer. Now, to the last question or last mindset. Pick the answer a calm, ethical PM would do first. So in your PMP examination, make sure that you are picking an answer which shows that the PM is also calm and is also ethical and what they can do first. So how does it help? So or how do you explain this? When two choices seem possible, okay, choose first action, the calm, professional, ethical. What would the PM do? Understand, collaborate, follow, process, communicate, and also protect value. So this is very, very important when you're when you come across such a question in your PMP exam. So using this mindset, let us go through the specific question now. A project issue creates pressure from senior management and the team is anxious. What is the safest first mindset for the project manager? Okay. So what is our problem statement here? There's a project issue which is creating pressure from senior leaders. What is the safest first mindset for the project manager here? Okay. So let us go through the answers now. React quickly to show agents. Okay. How does it solve the issue of the pressure? It doesn't. So this is unlikely going to resolve the issue. Okay. Blame the person closest to the issues. Don't blame anyone in a project environment. So this is unlikely going to be an answer. Stay calm, assess facts, involve the right people, and follow the appropriately. I like this one. Stay calm and assess facts. Okay. Hide the issue until the solution. Never hide anything in a project. Always be transparent in a project environment. Making C the best answer in this scenario. So you need to stay calm, assess the facts, involve the right people, and follow the appropriate process. So why is C the best answer? The mindset rewards calm, okay, ethical, and also disciplined action. So this takes us to the end of the mindset. We have covered 30 of them in this particular video. And I believe if you apply these 30 mindsets in your PMP exam, you are likely going to eliminate close to 80% of the questions. And I hope you are also going to pass your PMP exam.